getting set up. There we go. Ooh, giddy up. Ooh. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? Dungeon of Terror, what's up, dude? You like that video, man? Thanks, man. The combat video. Oh, the one about, like, using narrative description and stuff to make combat better. Welcome to the stream. I know. It's good to be here. Mega Chipmunk. Mega Chipmunk, what's up, dude? What's up, Glad Cleric? Unstable, hello. Cardiac Bean. Nice. All right, I gotta get my junk. Ooh, I forgot to do something. All right. We are looking at my assistant's weekly reports. And all right, we don't need to do that. What I do need to do, I want to look at that. And we're going to, oh, look at that. Oh, and then I want to look at that too. Oh, very nice. All right, beautiful. Giddy up. Oh, my cats are fighting. You can see a little bit of it, not a whole lot. We're gonna catch just a little bit of it. What a jerk. Squirty Pie is also a crybaby. Like, Squeaky was barely touching her, and she's crying like she's being murdered. It's ridiculous. Squeaky's barely touching her, and she's like, I'm being killed.
He's trying to kill me. Make him stop. Why is Squeaky such a jerk? I don't know why he's such a jerk. It's not very nice.
All right. I don't know why it does that. I'm goofing around with something. I don't know. What are they doing now? No, they're gonna do some more fighting. Well, I don't know what they're doing. These guys are crazy. All right, I need to get my spreadsheet up. Bear with me, folks. Bear with me. This is complicated stuff right here. Very, 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 very complicated. There we go. Found it. The battle for the Fort Cat Box. Yeah, like who gets the honor of going in the cat box? Exactly. All right. I need to eat my pie. Courtney's got to itch her ear for us. All right, we can either start the stream or we can keep looking at my cats. What do you guys think? Cats or Luke live stream? I think I'm gonna lose this. Stream? No more cats? Okay. Both? We'll get the cats up on my desk. We'll just hold on to a cat. All right, there we go. Let's go back to here. And then, boom. There we go. It's a beautiful thing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live stream. Tonight we're gonna have fun. Yeah, because it's Friday and I'm kicking stuff below my desk. We have a couple things we're gonna be doing tonight. First thing we're gonna be doing is my assistant sends me D&D news items every week. And I was perusing through some of the news items that she sent to me this week, and I thought there were 3 of them in particular that I thought were fairly interesting that we're going to take a look at on stream. And I'll obviously have my own commentaries on them. It'll be very entertaining. There might be a rant in there somewhere. We'll see if something gets provoked. We're going to do that really quick. I say really quick, and it might take us some time, but hey, that's life. And then after we do that, then I will be getting into your questions, and I will be giving you the world's most adequate-ish answers, I suppose. And yeah, so just throw your questions in the chat. We have a spreadsheet. My moderators put all your questions into a spreadsheet so that I can just look at the spreadsheet and grab your questions, which means you don't gotta spam. Spamming will just get you. I think we kill spammers. Spammers die. So we don't just give you a warning. We don't just ban you. Like, is it Goliath Cleric? Goliath Cleric, who's in charge of tracking people down this week? Like, I think we have moderators that are we know they don't track you down. I'm gonna get myself in trouble. Don't spam, please. We are getting your questions into the spreadsheet. So yeah, that's the game plan for tonight. Now, before we jump in, however, I need to be sleazy for about 5 minutes or so. Not super sleazy. Before we just all of our live streams start off with giving a shout out to our wonderful patrons who help make things possible. So we're gonna go over to the screen that has all of their names on it right here. Very, very appreciative to all my patrons who help support the content that we create. We create tons of free content for the D&D and RPG community over on my website, thedmlair.com. Lots of free stuff that people can get, entire adventures, magic items, new monsters, tons of different resources over there that you guys can get and use in your games. We also have Lair magazine that we publish every month, and we have live streams, we have YouTube videos, we have a whole bunch of crap that we do. We have a Discord server, lots of people there helping other folks out. So my patrons help do a lot of stuff around here. I'm very, very appreciative. And these awesome people here get their names read off because they are super patrons. They have capes and stuff and spandex, and they fly around. Here we go. 5e Magic Shop, Aaron A, Aerospatial, Alex H, Alex T, Amanda W, Ambers, Anthony L, Arutha, Beoban, Brad A, Brandon Brand C, Brian S, Candy Sora, Chase O, Chris C, Chris E, Chris H, Chris R, Chris Y, Cody B, Contrary Gravy, Crispy Cucumber, Dalius G, David M, Dragon Demon, Drexus, Dresna, Dylan S, Ed R, Edward L, Endorian72, Ericos, Fallon, Frank C, Gary Goliath Cleric, Guro Munder H, sorry, Heretic, Hydra Slayer, Izzy D, Jacob S, Jake L, James L, Jessica J, Joshin B, Joel L, John H, John N, Jonathan S, Jorel, Jose B, Joseph H, Josh G, Josh S, Joshua G, Josue S, Justin N, Kale S, KK, Ken S, Kevin F, Kevin P, Kezides, Kirby, Kyle G, Kyle M, Kiriako, Labra Works, Leopold X92, Lodwick B, Lord Kebiak, Lori S, Lost to Read, Michael C, Michael H, Mr. Lin Kanu, Mr. T, Mumbles, Not a Bard, O and D, Patrick A, Paul B, Paul H, Paul R, Paul Y, Paul G, Paul W, Paul M, Penguinbot, Pierre P, published author, Rachel S, Gradients Guardians, Ramus, Ramsey M, Raslick, Race W, Rebecca K, Renner C, Rob M, Ron H, Ryan G, Sakura, Shane L, Simon Smashkull, Snapbragger, Son of a Sofa Man, Sophie M, Stetson H, Stephen A, Stephen F, Tactical Tokens, The Old DM, Talking Napkin, The Pickle, The Casual Nerd, The New Bad Hombre, Theta Tag, Tiger 500, Tim Black, Todd M, Tom, Tony M, Trevor G, Tristan W, Tyler R, Xavier H, Zack. Woo! Thank you. I made it. I mispronounced half of those, but it's not that bad. It's pretty acceptable, I think. Philip Ketchup, what's up, dude? How you doing? Smite the spammers. What else? Wow, my coffee is not very dark. The specialty coffee. Oh yes, we are currently raising money for. I gotta go find their page. Bear with me. We are trying to raise a bunch of money for some folks. I have to find their page. There we go. Let's go over here. Woohoo! Wee! All right, we are currently raising money for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. That is a difficult word for somebody who can't pronounce common English words. Anyway, we're raising money for a bunch of these people here. This is a disease, disorder type thing. I don't know what you want to call it. It's some medical condition that affects lots of people, and we are trying to raise $500 for them and donate it to them, because that's what you do when you raise money for a charitable organization. You donate it to them. We're trying to get $500 to give a donation to them. If you are interested, you can donate at the tipping link that was just dropped into chat right there. And 100% of all tips go to the Cystic Fibrosis I can't speak. I can't speak. They're going to go to that awesome foundation. We're going to call them the CFF. There you go. They're going to go to CFF. Woo! It affects the lungs. All right. I am not a doctor. I just know that people are affected by this and I want to help them. And so that's what we're doing. I can barely speak and you want me to say medical jargon. Yeah, that's not happening. My mommy cat is right here. You can't really see her head. Mommy. Oh, she went back down. She's like over here getting attention. What else are we gonna do? Oh yeah, let's start. Let's jump in, shall we? So let's go over to. All right, so news items. The first thing I wanted to talk about is there was a news item. We're gonna go over to my monitor over here. So I thought this was interesting. The Paizo workers are unionizing. Apparently, there was a former employee that made a whole bunch of accusations in a tweet, because that's how you make formal complaints these days, is you go onto Twitter and you post a bunch of messages. Anyway, there were accusations against Paizo of a whole bunch of bad stuff, you know, and apparently the workers are now seeking to unionize in order to combat all of the bad stuff that Paizo has been accused of doing. Thought that was interesting. I didn't read through all of her tweets and crap, but she accused them of a whole bunch of different stuff, you know. And there's a whole bunch of information. This is on, what is this? EN World, I think is the thread here. And who knows what they're gonna do? Apparently Paizo's very, very, very bad, according to the allegations and stuff. But of course, you know, you have some people's word against the company's word. So I thought it was, you can't really tell what the truth is in these things. Paizo, of course, has given their official little corporate explanation saying that they didn't do anything wrong, you know, and you have some employees that are all up in arms. Apparently there was a carpet that was very, very dirty. And this is part of it. There was a carpet that was apparently very, very dirty that they were trying to get cleaned. And I gotta be honest with you, I don't know what all the rest. They had a laundry list of allegations, you know, but one of them was a carpet that wasn't clean. I'm just gonna leave it there. I don't know, man. All right, hey, awesome, Victor Sawyer. Thank you, dude. I'm your favorite YouTuber. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Anyway, it's basically a their word against their word type of thing going on with the whole Paizo allegation thing, as far as I can see. And, you know, who knows what's actually going on over there? Who knows? But they're seeking to unionize. So that's all I got to say. But just remember, all companies out there, make sure you clean your carpets. I think that's really the moral of the story here. Clean your carpets, because if you don't clean your carpets, then jeez. Apparently your employees seek to unionize. And here's the thing, folks. I have worked in union environments. They were not fun places to work in. They were not. They were very, very not fun to work in. I won't mention which union I happen to be involved with, because, you know, protect the innocent, and there are probably some people in that union listening that would not be happy with me if I said bad things about it. But it was not fun. It was not fun. I never want to work with it. Yeah. Now, I don't know. I mean, I don't think all unions are the same, right? I think they're probably very widely based upon which union and stuff like that. But the one that I was involved with, it was like, holy freaking crap. This is like the worst thing in the world. You know, I happened to be, I wasn't in the union. I was part of management, and management wasn't in the union. All of our direct reports and stuff were in the union. And it was a big old pain in the butt. It was not happy. Yeah. So anyway, best of luck to them and stuff. But it was not an enjoyable part of my life, and I never want to have to do that again. So anyway, let's keep moving on, shall we? They're a mixed bag. Some do good work, others are just a crapshoot of nonsense. Yes. The one that I was in was a crapshoot of nonsense. And this is not to categorize and label all unions. I'm not familiar with all of them. All I can speak to is the one that I was personally involved with. And my observations, let me just lay it out here, were one, everybody, I was management, right? And just to be clear, I wasn't in the union, I was management. The people, the most of the workers, you really couldn't, it was like impossible to, if you had a bad employee or something, you really couldn't get rid of them. It was almost impossible to get rid of them. You could have people that didn't do their job, that didn't do jack diddly squat, and you really couldn't get rid of them. The only way to get rid of somebody was basically if they had a major fork truck incident, like if you had 3 fork truck incidents, really major fork truck incidents, then I think, you know, you could go, they could get rid of them. Or the other way was pointing out. If you were late a certain number of times, then you would point out. You'd get too many points, and then you'd leave. Those were really the only 2 ways. And so they were pretty complacent in doing their jobs and duties and stuff. Now you'd get a mixed bag. I absolutely had some people working for me that were amazing and really good workers. Others that it was just like, oh geez, dude, come on, man. So it was like a mix, you know. I think it came down to like maybe personal work ethic or something, but overall was not something I want to do again. So anyway, a GM in a management position, I know. Roll initiative. I think I'm gonna murderize you all. So there. All right, moving on now. What's our next point of? Okay, so oh yes. Here's a very good piece. This is actually D&D. It's less of like that stuff and more of actually D&D. So this came out at some point here. A couple weeks ago. This came out a few weeks ago. There's an article on D&D's website, Wizards' website, about creature evolutions. So I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I noticed it especially in that Candlekeep book that came out. They took alignment out of stat blocks, which I did not like because it made it more difficult for me to roleplay a creature. I would have to go look into the lore. It was the most stupid thing in the world because literally we did this on stream like a few months ago. I was looking through some of the monsters from Candlekeep and I noticed there was no alignment in the stat blocks. And I was like, okay, so is it a good guy? Is it a bad guy? Like, how do I roleplay this character? Because alignment tells me a lot about how to roleplay a character or a monster, you know? And so then I'd go over to the monster's lore and I would read through the lore and it says, oh, they're evil monsters. Okay, great. Now I have a better idea of how to roleplay this. It'd be nice if you put that into the stat block. And so I noticed that in Candlekeep. Well, apparently Wizards put a pause on alignments for a couple of their publications, a couple of their book releases, and they kind of go over it in this article and explain why. Essentially, they weren't sure what to do with alignment. And I think the debate, my understanding of the debate of alignment and not putting alignment in stat blocks, is they were getting flack, probably a vocal minority on social media would be my guess. They were getting flack about characterizing entire species as evil. And these are species, ladies and gentlemen. That is the appropriate term. If you look at goblins and orcs and mind flayers, these are species. These are entirely different species. Wizards gets into trouble because they use the term race with these creatures. If they would change their term, and I've said this a million times, I think they would have a lot easier problem, or a lot easier thing to deal with. But these species, apparently, they were getting flack because they would label a species, for instance, goblins, as evil. And then people will be like, well, you just characterize this entire species as evil. And so I think they were getting flack for that. And so that's my understanding. I doubt anywhere is Wizards actually going to say that. You all usually bury that sort of information in corporate speak, which is difficult to translate, but that's my understanding. I could be wrong. So anyway, they put a pause on that stuff because they were getting flack for that. And now apparently they're going to have 4 different ways that they're going to put alignment. Alignment is going to come back to stat blocks, kind of. Individuals, specific individuals, named individuals, let me zoom in a little bit for you, will have an alignment associated with them. So Strahd can be evil. Okay, thank you. That makes me feel better. Generic humanoids are just gonna say any alignment. So this is when you come upon the goblin or the orc. Any sort of generic humanoid is gonna say any alignment, reminding the DM that such people have vast moral range, which isn't really true if you look at the lore of D&D. It's not true at all. If you look at goblins, if you look at bugbears, if you look at orcs, they don't have a vast alignment range. It's just not true. According to the lore of D&D, these are evil creatures. Now, of course, there are always exceptions. Drow are evil, generally speaking, according to their society, especially in the Forgotten Realms. Now, if you look at something like Eberron, Drow are not typically evil. They're different, okay, but it's a different world. So, they're getting flack. I think they're getting flack about orcs, especially. You know, supposedly they're based on a real world people group, which who knows? And they're having to make these changes because they're getting flack on things. Anyway, so generic humanoids are just gonna say any alignment. Magical creatures such as angels, demons, devils, and the like will have a thing that says typically. So this is probably gonna be, I would imagine, things like mind flayers and beholders. I suppose they would have this, and they'll say typically. And then creatures such as beasts and oozes are just going to be unaligned. I think part of the thing we're running into too is that it's fairly obvious to me and other dungeon masters and most people with common sense and a rational thinking mind that there can always be exceptions to the rule. You know, mind flayers are generally going to be pretty evil, but occasionally you might have a mind flayer who's not, who's separated from the hive mind, you know, and has developed their own sense of morality, and they're not evil anymore. So we can definitely have exceptions, but so they're going to have to put typically in the stat block because they need to be very, very clear so people don't get offended. You know that you're typically evil, but there can be exceptions. So calm down, which I think was always understood anyway. But they're trying to do damage control and change how they, you know, write these things up because they're getting people getting all angry at them. You know, Twitter is just it's a maniacal. Oh, this is a good thing though. They're going to start listing the proficiency bonus in the stat block. So if you look at this, for instance, they have the proficiency bonus right there. I think that's really cool. I think that'll be super helpful for me to know what their proficiency bonus is. Because normally to know their proficiency bonus, you'd have to extrapolate it from the other numbers that are in the stat block. So that'll make it a little bit more convenient. Bonus actions are going to be listed in a special way and stuff like that. So anyway, there you go. There's a little bit of information about their whole stance on alignment, and you can go read more of it over here on the Wizards website. It's called Creature Evolutions. It's very, very beautiful. What did Goliath say? but those with the common sense to evaluate that are typically not those being vocal about whether it should or shouldn't be included. So that change is directed at those without common sense. Yes, absolutely. I feel like a lot of these big sweeping changes are being done because people are getting all in an uproar over things, being very vocal about it, usually on Twitter, and going nutsy, right? So there's got to be a reaction to that, you know, and sometimes it's just folks without common sense, you know. So I think a lot of these things are reactionary, you know. They're damage control issues is what they're doing, is essentially what they're doing, in my opinion. Working for a big company and knowing how big companies think, I think that's what they're doing for sure. I didn't read the whole thing about spellcasting. I didn't really care. What did they say? Well, maybe I do care. Maybe I should care. What did they say about spellcasting? I actually didn't get to that part in the article. Okay. Since 2014, creatures have tended to have the spellcasting trait, the innate spellcasting trait, or both. Starting in 2021, we have merged those two traits into an action called spellcasting. That action now appears in the actions section of a stat block. Oh, that's weird. Does this have it? No. Where's the example of that? That sounds interesting, or I don't know what even that is. The spellcasting action doesn't use spell slots. A creature can cast the action spell a certain number of times per day. Okay. The only spells that appear in the spellcasting action are ones that take an action to cast. Okay. We're more selective about which spells appear in a stat block, focusing on spells that have non-combat utility. You guys are idiots. A magic using monster's most potent firepower is now usually represented in a special magical action rather than relying on spells. Oh, okay. I understand what they're saying. So if something does damage, instead of saying they cast the fireball spell, they're going to create an action that basically is equivalent to the fireball, but it's described in the stat block. Actually, if I'm understanding this properly, I like this change. And we're talking about this one right here. One of my frustrations as a dungeon master is when I come to a creature that's a spellcaster, and then they have a list. Let's say they can cast level 1 through 5 spells, got cantrips and levels 1 through 5 spells. And then maybe I'm familiar with half of those spells. Maybe there are some that I'm not super familiar with. In any case, I usually have to look them up or think about them before actually doing something. So if they take the ones that do damage, the combat related spells, or they just have combat useful effects like hold person and stuff like that, if they put those into the stat block as an action and described what it does, it would save me the time of having to go look that spell up. So that would actually make it easier for some of these creatures that are spellcasters, in my opinion. So I kind of like that. The other thing too that I'll note is many of the spellcasters have so many different spells, and most of them, you don't use half of them. The average spellcaster in D&D combat lives about 3 rounds. Let's say, if you're lucky, if you can keep the spellcaster away from the barbarian and fighter, they'll live for 3 rounds. They'll get to cast 3 spells, guys. 3 spells. So you need to come out blazing with your best spells. I mean, that's how you run spellcasters, because they're going to die in 3 rounds if you're lucky. So you don't need a whole crazy massive list of spells. Now, if you're talking out of combat, of course, utility spells and stuff, that's a little different. Sure, I get it. But if you're talking combat, you don't need that many spells because you're never going to be able to cast that many. So that's always been a frustration for me, I guess. So maybe this will make spellcaster monsters easier to play, possibly, and that would be good. I would like that. So this actually sounds interesting. I would like to see how this is implemented. I kind of like the sound of this, actually. So yeah, that actually sounds like a pretty good trait. That sounds like a pretty good thing. So they're doing some things reactively for damage control, and other things they're actually improving the game. So that I like that. That makes me feel better. I can be positive, right? Yeah. Okay. Mighty Blue Goblin, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate that. Also, Paul B tipped $50 for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. I'm sorry. I am never going to be able to pronounce that name. I won't. I will never be able to say it right. I'm going to mispronounce it every single time. But thank you, Paul B. I really appreciate that. Fry Minis, $5 super chat. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. When do we get a LayerCon recap video? I don't think we have any videos from LayerCon. Peak D&D has some footage of the 2 panels that we did and the game I did with them. And they're going to get me some of that, the panels and stuff, and we're gonna figure stuff out. But I don't know when. They have all the footage and they're doing the editing and stuff, which is a lot of work. So I'm not gonna bug them about it. I'm just gonna let them do their thing because I'm just very grateful and appreciative that they're doing it. So yeah, my cat wants attention. All right, there. I think I got through all that stuff. Yes, do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. Where were we? Oh yeah, by the way, I just tried to pronounce this name, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. We are trying to raise $500 for these folks here. All tips go toward them. So if you'd like to help raise some money for this, once we get to $500, which is our tip goal, I will be donating $500 to them. That's how this works. Yay! The other piece of news I wanted to talk about was Travelers of... there was a new Unearthed Arcana released. New Unearthed Arcana, Travelers of the Universe. I mean, it was released like a couple weeks ago, so that's new to me. Now, apparently, it has 6 different races. An astral elf, an auto gnome, which is like a mechanical gnome, a gif, we all know what those are, the hippopotamus creatures, a Hazadi, a plasmoid, and a 3-creen. 3-creen are pretty cool. These are 2 new ones, it looks like to me. I'm not gonna actually go through the Unearthed Arcana. I'm not gonna actually go through it tonight, but what I found interesting about this, as soon as I saw that they were releasing these, and it literally says journey to the far corners of the multiverse with these playable races. Has there been an announcement from Wizards that they're going to be making a Planescape book? Do we know if they've announced anything like that? Either Planescape, maybe Spelljammer. But when I saw this Unearthed Arcana, the very first thing that I thought was, is this a prelude to a future setting book? And I don't know if they've made announcements or not. I really don't pay attention to their stuff. I rely on my assistant to send me news updates, and I don't remember seeing one about Planescape. But it's possible. I'm just theorizing here. You think Spelljammer is more likely? It could be. I am not familiar with either Planescape or Spelljammer. Planescape, my understanding is you're going to different planes. And Spelljammer, you're traveling in outer space and stuff into different worlds, I think. I don't know. I've never played either of those. I have a very rudimentary understanding of them. But when I read those different races in Unearthed Arcana, I immediately was thinking, are these for a future campaign setting they're going to release? And are they trying to get these races out here? We should call them species. Are they trying to get these species out there so that people can playtest them and then give them a whole bunch of feedback that they might read? So that's my guess. That is my guess. Those are all creatures from Spelljammer. Oh, they are. Oh, okay. They are releasing Monsters of the Multiverse soon. Oh, what is that? Okay, that's a book I don't know. Let's look up that. Monsters of the Multiverse. Monsters of the Multiverse. Monsters of the Multiverse. New Monsters of the Multiverse. Do they have one? Who? Okay. I have not heard of this. Volo's Guide to Monsters. Monsters of the Universe. Morton Canyon presents Monsters of the Universe. Oh. This looks like old. Well, this is like a month old news. Over a month old. Morton Canyon presents Monsters of the Universe. A D&D compilation of monster material from previous products updated to a new format. Okay. Wait. No, come on. Oh, freaking bullcrap. Dude, did you see what they're doing? You literally see what, are you kidding me? We're not even getting new monsters. They're updating the formatting. Come on. What? Why do I need this? This is a book I won't be getting. Okay, all right, so we have the Bard. We have the Bard in Volos, and this is what the stat block in Volos looks like. Oh, and then in the new book, it's gonna look like this. Look at this. we gave the proficiency bonus here, and we did some. See these spells over here? Okay, the spells are going to be, it doesn't have any spells, or they're right here or something. Okay, are you kidding me? There's literally going to be no new material. They're going to take old stat blocks and reformat them. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? Somebody tell me that I'm wrong. Am I misunderstanding this? Can somebody please set me straight? Tell me that's not what they're doing. Oh, Penguin, but you did tell me? Okay, I probably missed it. Joan Dudley, hello. You're at the hospital? I hope you get better. I'm sorry. Get better, please. I went to the hospital a month and a half, 2 months ago, to the emergency room. It was miserable. I don't want to ever have to do that again. That's what they're doing? What a waste of time. Okay, so either they have nothing better to do, they can't give us new resources, or they're getting so much flack on social media from listing alignments in the stat blocks that they're literally publishing a new product to take out the alignments in the stat blocks. Wow. I'm not buying this stupid book. What a waste of crap. Yeah, that's stupid. There you go. You heard it here, folks. That's stupid. Don't waste your money on that crap. Go buy something else. I pray to all that is holy that product bombs and they get like no revenue from it, so that they can get the message that that's not what people want. People want new content. Give us new monsters. Don't just take the same. It's okay. Look at, if they had seriously, this deserves a full screen. If they had taken content from 2nd edition, 3rd edition, like AD&D, if they had taken monsters from like back in the day, and they were going to take old edition monsters and they were going to put them into 5th edition format, heck yeah, give me more monsters. Let's do it. Let's rock and roll. I would be all on board with that. But they're not even doing that. They're taking monsters that already exist in 5th edition and they're putting it into a new format. What? Okay, so maybe you don't already own the Monster Manual and Volos and Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Maybe you don't. So then maybe you'll get some use out of this book because you don't have those things. Maybe, I don't know. But is it going to include all of the books in one handy resource, or is it going to be some of them? And is it going to include all the monsters from all the different modules they released too? Like, is this going to be like that big of a book that includes like everything or something? Or is it just, yeah, I don't know, dude. Like, you're getting... I just have nothing positive to say about that. It really feels like, why else would you do this but to a, like, why? It's either a money grab, or you really just need to like appease the people that are going crazy on social media by taking the alignment out of, look at, we heard you about the alignment issue. So now we are publishing an entire book. We're going to take a loss on it because nobody's going to buy it. That takes alignment out of stat blocks. That's how dedicated we are to correcting this oversight. Oh man. Okay. All right. Well, I wish that the best. All right. Those are all the news points. Is there anything else interesting in the D&D news that I should know about? Is it the beginnings of 5.5? It's not 5. It's not even a 5.5. It's literally, we changed some things in the stat block. We took out alignment and we added proficiency bonus. That's not even a 5.5. It might include the monsters from supplemental books as well. Okay, so you got some more monsters in there. You've recently completed your first ever campaign, 100% homebrew, 11 months, 120 hours. Nice, good job. I'm gonna just call you X-Life. I can't say your name, X-Life. Well done, dude. Completing a campaign is actually a pretty big accomplishment. Most campaigns never get completed. The majority of campaigns stop and break up because of scheduling issues, scheduling issues, whether they're actually true scheduling issues or it's just people don't want to play the game, who knows, or people have social excuses to not go play because they don't want to tell you they don't like the game. But anyway, most campaigns stop and break up and never complete due to scheduling problems, because people get busy. It's like, I was in a game once, I literally was in a game once that was crap. It was a crap game. And I was like, you know what? I was there for a couple game sessions and I was like, you know what? I'm not going back to this game. I'm not going to spend time of my life. I'm not going to spend any time of my life in this game. I'm not enjoying myself. And so I'm like, yeah, you know, guys, this is hard. Playing every week is really rough. I don't think I can do this anymore. I just don't have the time for it. Because why? Because it's the polite social thing to say. Am I going to tell people that I really kind of don't know that well that, yeah, your game's not that good, I'm sorry, I'm not playing anymore? No, that's just not polite. You know, you really, I don't know. If it were my close friends, then that's a little bit different. You know, I might tell them things like that, you know, to help them or something. Maybe, you know, of course, that's at the risk of hurting the friendship though. So yeah, anyway. But anyway, good job completing your campaign because most never finish. The majority never finish. Fizbin's out Monday. I have 2 books on pre-order from my local game shop. Both alt covers. What was the one that came out right before Fizbin's? There was one that came out before Fizbin's. Everyone but says I legit had to stop running my game because of my own scheduling issues. So you weren't enjoying your own game and you told your players scheduling issues. I'm messing with you. There was one that came up before Fizbin's, and that one's ready for me. Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Yeah, that one is waiting for me at the game shop. It's been there for like a month or something. I need to go get it at some point and hope that they still have it. I just don't have a whole lot of motivation to get that book. I'm not going to use anything in it. I mostly wanted it because it's an alt cover and I'm like, I just want to have all the alt covers. I'm probably not going to use any of the content in it. Now Fizbin's is about dragons and crap. So I have a feeling that I'm probably going to find more use in that book. Mini me div. What's up, dude? Yes, I'm live. Hello. You are very welcome, dude. Nixon says, I've been trying to wrap up a 3-year campaign and my players keep dragging it out so they can play their characters. Yes. What's up, Shy? How you doing? I love alt covers. The alt cover, except for Tasha's. Tasha's alt cover is garbage. It's so horrible. It's like for Tasha's, you can almost judge the book by its cover. It's like, yeah, the alt cover looks pretty crappy. Most of the content in it, I'm not a super fan of. There's some good stuff in there, but some of it I'm not a fan of. Yeah, you get a shout out. Running a Christmas one shot, yeah, have Santa Claus kill everybody. That's what I got. That's my suggestion. Hello, everybody. They have the big boss be Santa Claus, and he's got a big sack. And he whacks players with it. And then, you know, as a Lair action, he reaches into his sack and pulls out a present. And the present is like a bomb or some horrible thing, or it turns into a monster or something. And then he's, you know, if he grapples a player, he can stuff the player in the sack. And then he shakes it around and stuff. And then the player, if the player doesn't get out after every round he's in there, he's got to make a saving throw or be like dominated by Santa Claus. And then Santa Claus will pull him out and he's got to fight against his own party and stuff like that. And then, you know, Santa Claus can like grapple you too. And he's got like a pocket full of cookies, like old cookies from previous Christmases that he hasn't used or eaten. And he stuffs these moldy, nasty cookies into your mouth. It's like a poison saving throw and stuff. You know, you could just have this Santa Claus just doing all these nasty things. You know, he has skeletal reindeer fighting with him. I don't know, just go crazy. Go crazy with a crazy Santa Claus, dude. There you go. If it's turkey for Thanksgiving, do something similar. A crazy massive big turkey that like stomps on your head. I don't know. There you go. Stale cookies and sour milk. Yes, there's your Christmas one shot, dude. Rock and roll with that. Okay. I think I got through all the news items I wanted to talk about. So let's go to questions. Let's start answering questions, shall we? There are no mimics. There are no mimics. Have you had a chance to look at the material from Fizban's Treasure of Dragons? Nope, have not. Don't even have it yet. Do you have an advice or a template for a one-page backstory for players, or is one page not enough? Yes, I do. I have a template for backstories that is literally 10 questions that players answer the questions, and that forms their backstory. I believe I have it listed. I think it's up on Drive-Thru-RPG is where I have it listed, and it might be free or it might be like $1 or something. But if you look me up on Drive-Thru-RPG, and there might be a link. I don't know if the moderators can throw a link to it as well. But I have a bunch of crap on Drive-Thru-RPG, and a backstory template is one of them. So you can go check it out there. It might be pay what you want. It might be pay what you want. Not totally sure. It's been a while since I looked at that. I published that thing a couple years ago. I have not really paid attention to it. How do you adjust combat encounters for larger groups? I literally have an entire video about that. If you search on my channel, I have an entire video about adjusting combat encounters for larger groups. The long and short of it is pretty simple. Larger groups require more difficult monsters and more monsters. Be careful with just making the monsters like higher CR. Like if you have a group of 4 players and you have 2 monsters, that's probably okay-ish. 3, or generally speaking, to have a challenging encounter, you usually want to have as many monsters as there are players, because then action economy it is on your side. But you could, let's just pretend for the sake of an argument, let's say you have 2 monsters that are a challenge for 4 players. If you turn those 4 players into 8 players, and you take those same 2 monsters and you just increase their challenge rating, those 8 players are probably going to do way better than you would think against those monsters, because there are more of them and they have action economy on their side. So it's not sufficient to just increase like the challenge rating of the monsters. You need more of the monsters in order to help with action economy and to make things more tactically interesting as well. Because it's not just about how hard the monsters are, how many hit points they have, how much damage do they do. But if you're playing out combat, especially if you're doing tactical combat with a map and grid and minis and stuff, whether it's on Roll20 or whether it's on at a table in person, when you just have a couple monsters and you have 8 players, they're just going to engage in melee. They're going to surround and just start beating on it. Some people will stay back, spellcasters and archers and stuff, but then nothing really happens each round. There's no movement, there's no tactics or anything. It's really just do damage. And then at that point, it's just who's going to run out of hit points first is determining that combat. But when you have more monsters, then you have to think about, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? How am I going to... And there are some spellcasters in back, and there's a cleric back here. Oh no, we can't just let the cleric use healing word on everybody and heal them all the time. Somebody's got to go take care of that cleric. And that wizard is back there doing bad stuff. So when you have more monsters and a variety of monster types, it makes the battle much more interesting than if you just have one single monster type and just a couple monsters. So with larger groups, you want more monsters, you want them to be more challenging. Those are the basics of it. And like I said, I have an entire video that goes into more details on larger group combats and stuff like that. That said, expect a larger group's combat to take a lot longer. Why? Because instead of 4 players, you have 8. That in and of itself is going to make a combat take longer. And then if you're using monsters with a higher CR, they do more damage, they have more hit points, and you're using more of them, guess what? That's going to make everything take longer. So expect combats to take longer. It will be a thing, absolutely, with larger groups. So that's an expectation to keep in mind as well. What is a practical way to engage your players into the plot hook? Does it always have to tie into the big bad or character goals and ideology? No, it doesn't have to apply to character goals. Absolutely not. Some adventures I design are absolutely tied to a character's backstory or maybe a goal that they have, but usually a backstory. Absolutely, I will do that from time to time. But I would say that, well, it depends on the group and it depends on what we're doing. Some groups I do a lot more things with their backstories than other groups. So it does depend on the group and the players and their interests and just kind of the way the wind blows. Because sometimes you can feel that whatever you thought your main campaign arc was going to be is deviating and we're going somewhere else now. Like, for instance, I had one of my groups, my Ancient Dragon group, their plot was originally focusing on the Fae and some demons. There were some bad things happening with Fae and demons in Waterdeep. And now they did some bad things. They awakened a Titan that is now rampaging across the north. And they have learned that the only way to defeat this Titan is to obtain what is it called? The book of, it's a really bad book. Book of Not Exalted Deeds, the opposite one. What's the opposite one called? It's not the Book of Exalted Deeds. Somebody help me out. You guys know what the answer is. You know what the answer is. Somebody tell me. Because I call it the Book of Tongues. Because it's the Book of Tome of Vile Darkness. Thank you. The Tome of Vile Darkness. I call it the Book of Tongues in my game. But yes, supposedly they have to get the Tome of Vile Darkness. And if they get the Tome of Vile Darkness, that will somehow help them to defeat this Titan. I don't think they know how. One of the players who's no longer with the group was a wizard, and he did some research, and he discovered that the Tome of Vile Darkness will help them defeat the Titan. And the group now is basically just operating on the assumption that if we get the Tome of Vile Darkness, that will help us defeat the Titan. I don't think they know how that's actually going to work. They're going to have to figure that out, I guess. But anyway, the point is that they are on their way to retrieve the Tome of Vile Darkness. And the place where the Tome of Vile Darkness, a unique book, is currently located is in a domain of dread called the Black Shards, which I created. And my players have just now entered Black Shards. I don't think they know how they're going to get out of the Black Shards because it is a domain of dread. They're in the Black Shards now, and their goal was to get the Book of Vile Darkness, the Tome of Vile Darkness. And now they've gotten into the Black Shards, and they have discovered that the people there, the populace as a whole, is essentially under slavery in a way, or at the very least living under horrible circumstances where they are forced to mine gems and gold and other precious metals for the Dark Lord that rules there. And in exchange for doing that, they're given food. But the people are all gaunt, they're hungry, they're starving, they live in dismal conditions. And so my players have just decided that, you know what, screw this crap. And oh, by the way, my players, they did a boo-boo. They when they entered this domain of dread, there were some servants of the Dark Lord that came across the players. And the servants of the Dark Lord they were flying creatures, and they knew that somebody different was there. They could smell them, and they could smell the precious metal on them and the gems and stuff. And they were calling out to them. And my players were hiding and doing a really good job of it. I think one of them cast Pass Without Trace. They were hiding in the trees and stuff. And these servants of the Dark Lord were circling about, and my players wouldn't talk with them. And so the servants were like, okay, well, we know who you are. We know where you live. There's a village right near here. We know where you're from, and you're holding out on us. You were supposed to give us all of your precious metal and gems and stuff, but you're not. So this is what we're going to do. On the morrow, we're going to go to your village, and we're going to collect what's due. And so my players didn't know what was going on. They didn't understand the lore or how things worked in the Dark Shards, in the domain of dread. So my players were like, okay, and they kept on traveling. Well, it's a mountainous terrain. It took them a few days to get from that location to the next village, whereas the servants of the Dark Lord, they can fly, and so it's much easier for them to get to the village.
they got to the village in advance of my players and just went to town. They didn't decimate it. They didn't demolish it or anything, but they really took the town people there to task. They took their things away. They took their food away as punishment for not giving them all of their, precious metals and gems and things like that. And then when my players arrived, they found out that the Dark Lord's servants had done that. And now my players just want to go to basically a dungeon where the Dark Lord's servants dwell, as far as they know, and they just want to go clear it out. They want to kill everything there. That's what they want to do. They want to kill everything there. So apparently now the whole idea of getting the Tome of Vile Darkness to stop the Titan, which doesn't have anything to do with the original plot arc of the Fae and the demons, that's all off the table now. And they just want to go clear this dungeon out. They just want to clear the dungeon out. I think they have learned, though, that there is a Dark Lord called Zitrith, the Queen of Nightmares, or the Mother of Nightmares. I think it's actually the Mother of Nightmares. And she has 9 champions, 9 of them, which are her children. So her children are her 9 champions of darkness. And they're called the 9 champions, or the 9. And so my players are going to go to the Bastion, the Dark Bastion, one of the strongholds of one of the 9, one of those champions, and they want to kill everybody there. I don't know what they're going to do at this point, because there are literally 9 total Dark Bastions, and then Zitrith, the Mother of Nightmares, has her own massive fortification. So I don't know what my players are going to do at this point, if they're going to go from Dark Bastion to Dark Bastion, clearing out all 9 of them. Is their goal going to be to kill all of the 9 and then kill Zitrith herself? I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to do. At our last game session, they were simply like, you know what? We're going to go kill everybody there. That's what we're doing, because they are oppressing these people and we are not very happy. And so they had a plot hook. They had bitten my plot hook. They were going after the plot hook. They were going to go get the Book of Tongues, the Tome of Vile Darkness, but it sounds like that has all been tabled for now, and they're just gonna go start killing the bad guys. We're just gonna go kill the bad guys is their current plot, or their current goal. Now, the original question had to do with plot hooks, and that's how we kind of got on this tangent. What was the question again? What is a practical way to engage your players into the plot hook? I have different ways of getting my players engaged in the plot hook. There are 3 different ways they get plot hooks in my games. One is there's usually a main campaign story arc, which is the main campaign. This is what the campaign's about. In the instance of the story I just told you, it's about the Fae and demons and bad stuff happening. Now, my players get engaged in that plot hook probably for 2 main reasons. One, it's part of the unspoken social contract. The game master is running a game, the game is about this, therefore we're going to play his game. The other part is that you try to make it cool and interesting. You try to give them rewards. You try to make it worth their while to go follow that plot hook. So those 2 elements there are the primary engagers of that plot hook, making it sound fun and interesting and cool, and the social contract. Now, the other type of plot hook has to do with their character backgrounds or their own personal goals. Those plot hooks are pretty darn easy, because it's called knife theory, I've heard it called. Basically, if they have a character background, you can take you have to pick parts of their character background, their backstory, the things things in their past, and if you take your knife and you poke it at the right thing, your players are going to react. Oh, what? No! How is that possible? My brother, I thought he was dead, and now he's been sighted. Wow, I have to go find, or my brother, whom I thought was dead, is now in prison, and he sent me a message asking me to help him. Well, we got to go find out what's going on. Holy crap. You see, you take your knife and you stick it in the right place, and your players' backstories, and they will react. And that engages them. Because your players' backstories are something they created. They wrote it. And so it's closer to them. It's more personal to them. And when you take it and you create an adventure or something going on that has to do with their backstory, they're going to be pretty immediately engaged. And usually, in my experience, they want to go do that thing because it's part of their backstory. It's like, oh, my backstory, we're going and doing that. I always try to make those adventures and those things things that the entire group goes and does, because I run group games. I don't run individualistic games. So if there's something going on with one character's backstory, the whole group goes there on an adventure and figures stuff out. And this is part of our social contract that we play as a group. We don't play individually. So if there's a plot hook that involves, you know, Jim Bob's character, well, then guess what? The expectation is that everybody's going to go help Jim Bob. Once you get done with your current quest and there's nothing pressing or whatever, you guys make your own priorities. But if you want to help Jim Bob, everybody goes. The third type of plot hook that I give my players is plot hooks that come from things that they have done in the game world, problems they have caused, things they've done that have consequences. For instance, in the story I just went on about, they had awoken a Titan. They had awoken a Titan that had been cast down from the heavens, and the Titan began to go on a rampage across the entire area. My players felt responsible for the destruction that was being done by that Titan. And so they wanted to solve that. It was like, oops, we caused that. That's our fault. We should probably fix that. And that engaged them. So now there are a couple of things here that, you know, when you have their decisions have consequences and things happen as a result, it makes them first feel like the world is living. It's a living, breathing game world. Our decisions matter, our choices matter, the things we do actually matter, and things happen as a result. And when one of those things that happens as a result is something that has negative consequences, or something bad is happening in the game world, your players will feel like, oh, we should probably go fix that because that's our fault. We did that. So when you have, that's the third type of plot hook you can give your players that will get them engaged. And for those reasons, they will feel responsible, like they need to go fix it. My players right now felt responsible for that Titan, and now they're trying to go fix it. So you got three basic types of plot hooks that I just laid out there. And all of them have their own unique ways that they engage your players and get them to want to go do that thing. So if you poke at any of those things, then you're going to be on a really good track. Usually you start off a game with your main campaign story arc. That's your plot hooks. Those are your plot hooks. Those are oftentimes less engaging than the other two types of plot hooks. But once the game gets rolling a little bit and you've gotten a few adventures under your belt and you start digging into players' backstories and you start creating plot hooks based on their backstories and separate adventures that they can go on that are based on their backstories, that's going to be more engaging to them usually than your main campaign story arc. And then now the whole thing with the third type, which is where there are events in the world happening that are based upon their actions and decisions, they need to have a few adventures under their belt. They need to have done some things that you can then think about, what are the consequences? Oh, they stole that map. Okay, what consequences can I think up of? Oh, they awoken that Titan. Okay, cool. What consequences can happen from having awoken that Titan? All right, so they need some adventures under their belt so you can brainstorm and think about those consequences. So the third type of plot hook you really can't get into until they've done some adventuring for at least several game sessions. And then you can start deploying that third type of plot hook. But all of those types of plot hooks are beautiful. Now, depending on your game, you're going to have a different mix of those different three. Some games are going to be mostly heavy into the main story arc plot hook. For instance, my Curse of Strahd game right now, we are literally running a module. And I told my players, look we're running the module. We're running Curse of Strahd. Yes, you guys have backstories, some of you. This game is not about your backstories. This game is about Curse of Strahd. We're running the module. You guys want to play Strahd? Okay, let's play Strahd. So you're probably not going to see a whole bunch of stuff from your backstories. So that's usually off the table if I'm running a module, depending on the flavor and how I want to do it. You don't have to do it that way. You can obviously run modules and work in stuff from their backstories if you wanted to. In this particular case, they're on a domain of dread, which is separate from their entire lives. So everything from their backstories is literally not there. It's in a different world. So it didn't make sense to incorporate that stuff. And I wanted to run the module. I didn't want to do homebrew custom things in this particular case. Now, the things that happen as a result of their actions could still happen in the module, right? But anyway, that's not the point. Sometimes you're going to have very heavy focused on the main story arc. Other games, you might have really heavily focused on their backstories or really heavily focused on cleaning up consequences from their actions. My Ancient Dragon game right now is mostly deviating away from the main story arc. The main plot hook about Fae and demons is they haven't done anything with that for 6 months or more in real lifetime. Everything right now has been running adventures that have to do with their backstories, or now they're doing adventures that have to do with consequences in the game world because of their actions. And I need like a fancy term for that. Anyway, so they're pretty much deviating that way. So you get different flavors of campaigns based upon which of those things you're implementing and how heavily you're implementing them. I would say that my standard homebrew campaign tends to mix all three of them historically. Currently, I have one that's heavily focused on plot hooks, the main campaign story arc. And then I have another one that's kind of the opposite and is focused mostly on backstories and cleaning up bad stuff that happened because of decisions they made in the game world. So anyway, there's a treatise on plot hooks, the various types of plot hooks, and how you might use them in your games and why, and how they engage your players. There you go. Bingo bango. Okay, cool. I need to, where was that question? Because I need to mark the time down for that one. All right, there we go. I found it. That was probably about. Coffee alert. Oh, I'm low on coffee. Literally out of coffee now. I've totally depleted the coffee supply. All right. Wow. Woo. Oh, hey. Darth Joel, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. I appreciate that. Darth Joel says, channel 80s player getting back to game. Oh, love the channel. Okay, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. I'm DMing first time in years. Read books, set my homebrew rules, got my world created, missing anything. I'll tell you what, we're gonna take a quick break, dude. We're gonna give my cats some treats, and then when I get back, I will answer your questions, sir. But my kitty cats need treats, and I need more coffee, so. It is time for the cat strike, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, here they come running. Here they come. Wow, I have all 7. We literally have all 7 here tonight. Wow. All right, guys. We have 7 hungry faces. Yeah, I bet. All right, I'm gonna go get some more coffee. I'll be back in a second. Watch the kitties. They are adorable.
Little girl is playing with the laser pointer. She went over to play with the laser pointer. I have an apple pie. Dawson! Dawson, what's up, dude? Welcome, man. Ooh, Quasums, what's up, dude? Zack, how's the latest batch of videos going, man? See, my editor comes on stream. He's like, it's Friday night. I'm gonna relax and have fun and just chill a little bit. And then Luke, he's like, crap, now Luke's asking me about work. Crap, I shouldn't have come. Nacho, you're very welcome, dude. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. Well, that's hot. DM prepping, drinking coffee, watching Luke live. Good times. Whee! Shy Horizon. Your name sounds so familiar. Have you done like freelance work for us or something? Sounds so familiar. Wait, do you do the maps for us? Do you do maps for us? We have a cartographer who draws maps, like hand-drawn maps. Yeah, are you that person? Obviously, there's more than one person in the world with that name. Oh, cool, awesome. What's up, dude? Welcome. Good to see you, buddy. Yes, the hand-drawn maps, those are very, very beautiful. Yes, love that crap. Cool. Awesome. Awesome to see folks here. Well, I mean, I can see your name. That's what I can see. You know, speaking of maps, that was the perfect segue into a sleazy plug. Ladies and gentlemen, are you looking for 5th edition compatible DM resources that you can use in your game? Things like 5th edition adventures complete with maps designed for use in virtual tabletops, puzzles, traps, new monsters, magic items, NPCs, villains with stat blocks, tons of different resources you can use in your D&D games? Well, Lair magazine has it all. That's right. Become a DM Lair patron today and you can get a monthly issue of Lair magazine. And then you can see a bunch of stuff on screen there. Kind of shows you some Lair magazine stuff. We publish Lair magazine every month to our patrons. It's usually about 50 plus pages of stuff you can use in your games. It's literally stuff you can use in your games. Encounters, traps, puzzles, entire adventures. It's high quality crap. We have a team of freelancers that I pay to write this stuff. It's very, very good. We have a review process. Ed Robinson is my lead developer. He checks it for balance. He checks it for correctness. All these cool things. Sunny is my editor. We check it for that crap, like editing stuff. I check it. It's very, very, very nice. Zack here, Goliath Cleric, is one of my lead writers. It's a super high quality publication. So if you want to get your hands on this, you can become a DM Lair patron. And you can also play D&D with me from time to time. Every month I run a D&D one-shot game. And I pick the players from my patrons. So if that interests you, we also have a VIP Discord channel for just patrons and stuff where we can chat and talk and all that kind of cool stuff. So very, very cool stuff if you are interested. Penwebot says, Luke, you got to stop calling it crap. Okay, but it's high quality crap. The interesting thing, glad to see Luke is remembering to do the plugs. Yeah, I forget. One of my team members, Ed, he's my lead developer. He routinely goes out and gets other folks' magazines and resources to compare them to Lair magazine. And he's biased, obviously. I'm biased. We're all biased. Everybody in the world is biased in one way or another. But he'll routinely compare what we publish to other people's, and he always comes back with like, you know, they
this magazine has better artwork than us, but they have a staffed artist that they pay like, I don't know, close to $100,000 a year. So they should have better art than we do. And I'm like, yep, okay. But you know what? Their actual content that you can use in your game, not as good as ours. Their art is great, but their actual content's not as good as ours. And so he'll kind of go out and do these comparisons and stuff. And then come back and tell me, hey, they're doing this well, you know, but we're really good here and stuff like that. So anyway, I always think it's interesting. I love seeing what other people are doing and then, you know, seeing how good we are and then trying to make improvements. Okay. Oh, hey, you know what? Darth Joel, what's up, dude? Yeah, we were gonna talk about your super chat. Quasm says, sounds like Luke should be paying his writers 100K. I don't even get paid that much, dude. Are you kidding me? I have the business income, and then I pay all the people that work for me, and then I pay 40% in taxes. Like, I told my wife, I'm like, oh yeah, I'll tell my wife, this is how much money the business had at the end of this month. And guess what? Almost half of that I have to set aside to pay taxes. And she's like, are you kidding me? I'm like, no, I'm not kidding you. And she's like, that's crazy. I'm like, yeah, that's crazy. It is crazy. It sucks. It sucks hard. So anyway, yeah, I don't even get paid 100K. I don't know. There's literally one company out there in the D&D space who has like 4 people on staff. They have a couple production people staffed. They have an artist on staff. And they live in a state that is very expensive to live in, and they pay their people probably, you know, 70 to 80K. And I'm like, I don't know how you're in business, dude. You must be making way more money than I am. All right, let's do Darth Joel. Okay. So getting into DMing the first time in years, read the books, set my home road rules, got my world created, missing anything. Yeah, start the game. I think your next step, dude, is to start the game. Get your players and start the game. And you're gonna find that you're not ready. You're not prepared. But guess what? You'll never be prepared. You will never get to a point where you're ready to start the game. And this is true for anybody who's looking to become a dungeon master, who's looking to start becoming a dungeon master. It doesn't matter how much reading you do, how much prep work you do. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You will never be ready. You will never be ready to run the game. You'll probably never feel ready. You'll probably never feel super 100% confident. You have to start. You have to begin. And then when you begin, you're going to find out, oh, I need to work on this. I need to work on this. I didn't know these rules. I wasn't ready for this. Holy crap. And then you're going to find out all the different ways that you need to improve in, and then you can go about improving those things. But this is true for a lot of things in life. Almost anything in life, if you wait until you feel ready and you're prepared to try to do something, you will never do that thing. Like if you want to do a Kickstarter, if you wait until you feel ready to do a Kickstarter and you know everything about it, you will never do it. Because there are certain things you can only learn and discover and get better at when you do it. So being a dungeon master or whatever it is in life, you have to just prepare, you know, enough, but then you have to start. And so I would say it sounds like you're probably at the start stage to get going. Cinnamon-Fang, hello! First time listener, long time subscriber. Well, hello. Welcome to the channel. Just like preparing a concert? Yeah, Kat? Small businesses get screwed in taxes, then tons of massive companies pay 0 in federal taxes. Yeah. Well, that's because big companies can afford to have on-staff lawyers and accountants and stuff. The problem is that the US tax code has tons of loopholes, and you know, some people are more able to take advantage of those than others. So yeah, and small businesses get hit hard. So yeah, I pay like 40% is like what I pay. Like at the end of the month, I'll be like, okay, at the end of the month, I made X. Basically cut it in half because the rest of it's gonna go toward taxes. Yay, that makes me really want to work hard. Thank you for taking all my money away. I'm salty about that. I so hate it. I have a large accounting firm that I recently hired to help me try to reduce my tax burden because I am sick and tired of, as a small business, getting half of my profits taken away by the government. I'm so sick of it. It's such bull crap. And so we're trying to work on different things I can do to try to reduce my tax burden legally. Obviously, everything's legal. You just got to have the right people, the right team. They have to know the right things, and you got to do them in order to do it legally. And who wouldn't want to not have to pay tons of taxes to the government? Are you kidding me? Okay, you lost that bag. Come here. My cat Squirty Pie had a plastic bag. She was just going nuts on this thing. So I have taken that away from her because that was loud. All right, we got that one. Cool. Steve Mulhelm, thank you for the $5 super chat, dude. I appreciate that. Super chats do get you to the head of the line because you're throwing money at me. I answer your questions. I'll do my best to answer the other ones, but I'm just there's my sleazy plug call out. How you get money? What did Steve say? Have you considered putting Pathfinder 2nd edition things into Lair magazine? The only reason I haven't joined your Patreon is the D&D 5e specificity. Yes and no. So yes, considered, and no is the answer. And here's why. The moment that I take a 50-page publication and half of it is for 5th edition and half of it is for anything else, Pathfinder, 3.5, 4th edition, anything, this is immediately what happens. Half of my patrons, or maybe all of my patrons, I don't know, are gonna look at that magazine and they're gonna say, now only half of the content is something that I can use. Only half of it. Let's imagine for a moment that this book right here was published. Half of the content was for 5th edition, half of it was for Pathfinder. Would I buy this book? Not for $50 because I'm only getting half a book. The other half of the book has no value to me personally because I only play 1 edition. I think many people play 1 edition and they want resources that give them for the edition that they're playing. And even if you play 2 different types of games, if I publish half Pathfinder and half 5th edition, how much guarantee do I have that people are gonna have those 2 specific editions? You just don't generally publish resources that split through different editions because you're gonna alienate, disenfranchise, whatever, half or more of your audience because they don't use half of the content. They're not going to get as much value out of it. And then you're going to have a patron being like, well, I pay $15 a month. I was getting a lot of content that I could use, but now they're publishing more different editions and stuff in there. I'm not getting as much content anymore that I can actually use. I might just cancel this patronage and go over to somebody else that actually produces the content for the edition that I run. And so, yes, I am very specific about 5th edition because that's my client. That is my customer. My customer is people who play 5th edition. And if there are other people that publish magazines for Pathfinder, 2nd edition, or whatever, then I would say that you're their customer. That is the magazine. Those are the resources. I would go give them your patronage and get their product because they have decided that you are their customer, that they want to publish resources that are specifically for you. And so, yes, we are very narrow-minded. 5th edition is our customer, that is our audience, that is who we're publishing resources for the reasons that I just said. You mean like Wizards of the Coast doing half their book on monsters and the other classes? Yeah. Yeah, I didn't like that book. Mordecai's Tome of Foes is what he's talking about.
We started talking about taxes and stuff and businesses, and now apparently there's political talk going on. That's probably my bad. Just ban me. Penguin Butt, throw your wrench at me. It's my fault. I started it. Sir Vic, what's up? I'm going to be trying my hand in jamming my younger niece and nephews. What would you say is the biggest recommendation you have for someone just about to GM for the first time? Relax and have fun. Don't worry, don't fret, don't be anxious. The more anxious you get, the more you worry, probably the worse you'll actually do. It's a vicious circle, it just gets worse. So just relax and have fun. And guess what? Guess what? Your nieces and nephews, they don't know what an amazing game even looks like. They have no point of comparison. So when you get in there and you run a game for them and they have fun, that's all they're gonna know. My uncle or aunt ran an amazing game for me and I had tons of fun. They've probably never seen some of these famous professional dungeon masters that are putting on shows. They have no point of comparison. They're just gonna have fun and they're gonna enjoy it. So relax and don't worry about it, especially in that particular context. Do you think it's possible to run a D&D game for a group of 10 to 12 year olds? Yeah, I've done it before. I did it for years. If so, how would one go about it? You run a D&D game like you run any other D&D game. There's no difference. There are some little tiny differences, but dude, 10 and 12 year olds you're getting toward a pretty decent level of maturity at that point, especially at 12 years old. Dude, that's not a problem. Now, if you came to me and say 5-year-olds, ooh, that's a little more challenging. 8-year-olds, ooh. But once you get around 10 and above, dude, they're plenty mature. They're gonna be able to play the game. You don't need a kid's version at that point. You can play normal D&D using the normal rules. You don't need to like simplify it and dumb it down for them. 10-year-olds are plenty smart enough to figure it out. I was playing D&D with my daughter at that age. I had a group of youngling players that I was playing D&D with at that age. Not a problem at all. They pick it up and they learn. You just play a normal game of D&D. Couple recommendations for you. They're kids. I generally would give them more magic items than I would normal groups. I would give them more gold and more rewards just because it's for cool factor. They're kids, you know. I wanted to make the game, you know, woo, magic items. I wouldn't do that for adults, but for kids, you know, I make an exception. I'm a little more careful on my narrative descriptions. I want to make sure that I'm not describing something that is just, you know, like the words. I don't speak in profane language, but like my narrative descriptions about brains oozing out and the blow of a knife or an axe across somebody's throat, ripping open their throat, exposing their larynx and blood splurting all out. I might not be that descriptive to 10-year-olds. I might use different language, you know. Yeah, but with those minor distinctions and stuff, running a D&D game for 10-plus-year-olds, you just run D&D, dude. You run a normal D&D game. You don't really need to do anything different. They have fun. You're gonna find that they're probably murder hobos. Especially, I have found in the youngling group that I ran, there were 2 boys and 2 girls. The guys, they wanted to kill everything. Let's just kill them all. They just want to kill everything. Not like townsfolk and stuff. They weren't like that. But if it was a monster, if it was a bad guy, they wanted to kill it. The 2 girls, they wanted to use diplomacy on everything. They wanted to talk to everything, try to trick everything. They wanted to somehow talk their way through everything. It didn't always work. Sometimes it really didn't work. It got them into trouble. And the guys were like, we told you so. But anyway, so there were some play differences, but it's still a normal D&D game. It's still a normal D&D game. You talk a lot about fixing issues with D&D, a large one being boring and slow combat. I don't think combat is boring in D&D 1. Slow combat does not necessarily equal bad or boring combat either. I have been in lots of combats that, well, there's a difference between slow and takes a long time though. Slow means that
things aren't happening fast enough, which means that players aren't making up their minds, or dungeon masters aren't having their enemies do things quickly enough, and you're waiting on people. That's slow, and that's bad. And there are ways to fix that. And I've talked about that in other videos and stuff. Combat that takes a long time is not a problem. That's part of the game, and it's part of the game that many people love. I have no problem with an awesome combat taking a half an hour or an hour. If it's fun and it's awesome and I'm enjoying myself, let's go. Now, if it is a boring combat and slow, then that's a different story. But I don't think combat is inherently boring, and there are lots of ways you can make it more exciting. And I've talked about that in videos and stuff. And there are ways you can speed combat up. But again, combat that takes a long period of time isn't necessarily a bad thing. I would happily spend an entire game session mostly in combat, as opposed to doing something I don't like, such as exploration. Exploration is not my thing. I like talkie-talkie, I like social interactions, but exploration is not my thing. Have you looked at other systems, and if so, why have you stuck with D&D? No, not really. I have played other systems. I've played earlier editions of D&D. I've played Call of Cthulhu. I've played Pathfinder. I like D&D, dude. I don't have any problems with the D&D combat at all. There are ways to improve it and stuff. The biggest thing is people just not taking their turns fast enough. If you can get people to actually take their turns quickly and make up their minds and do stuff, as opposed to sitting there and thinking when they should have been thinking during everybody else's turn, then you've won. That's the single biggest thing you can do to improve your combats, is players are not allowed to take forever to make up their minds what to do. They have like 10 seconds to make up their minds, and if they don't, then they dodge and you move on to the next player. Like, you just can't let them take forever. Use your discretion, of course, but that's the single biggest thing. And dungeon masters, you need to make up your minds quickly. You can't sit there and look up spells and crap like that. You need to make up your mind more quickly. It's harder for dungeon masters because they don't have time to think while everybody else is taking their turn. They have to actually be adjudicating while all the players are taking their turn. So it is more difficult for dungeon masters. But players taking forever to make up their minds is the single biggest thing that bogs down combat. And that has nothing to do, that has less to do with the system and more to do with the players not being prepared and being indecisive, in my opinion. Wow, okay. Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft has a stress system, I haven't read that part of the book yet, that forces players to potentially fear a certain event, such as an incomprehensible monster. What is your opinion, and would you use it? I haven't read that, really, so I don't know that I have an opinion on something that I don't know. I might use it. I'm pretty neutral on it right now. I'd have to read more about it. But if you're giving them some role-playing guidelines, I think that's fine. You essentially say, listen, your character has been traumatized. They were afraid of X thing. You are responsible for role-playing that. Boom, you're done. I have no problem with that sort of thing. In world building, do you really have to consider the origins of every monster or race in the core books? No, of course not. Like, do I really have to consider the origins of drow or giants when I start a new game? No, of course not. Absolutely not. You can do as little or as much world building as you want. And you can always just develop things on the fly as you go as well. If you do think about those sorts of things, it can make the lore of your world more rich. But it's not required. There's so much world building you could do. You could go down a big rabbit hole of world building. There's a lot there. Luke, what is your thought on actions that simulate spells? I really like that idea. I understand the White Dragon's Breath is a 9th level Cone of Coal, but why should this work for spellcasters? I don't understand that part of the question. In my opinion, it is easier to have an action, a creature's action and a stat block, that just says what it does, because it's right there in the stat block. It's easy to find what it means and how to use it because it's in the stat block. But when the stat block says Cone of Cold, I don't use Cone of Cold every day. So what does that mean? I need to go flip through a book or follow a hyperlink to Cone of Cold and then read how Cone of Cold works. So it's an extra step for me to get to what it actually does. So when they take Cone of Cold and just make it an action as opposed to a spell, that makes my work as a dungeon master easier and makes my combat probably flow a little bit smoother and faster. And so I like the idea of spells as actions. Usually when I'm running a spellcaster, I will do two things. The first thing that I almost always do is I determine in advance what are the spells that it's probably going to cast in the first, second, and third rounds. Assuming things don't go sideways and I have to change my plans. What are my most optimal spells? What are my best spells? What are the ones I want to hit the PCs with before they kill me? I decide the first 3 rounds of spells. What am I going to kind of do if things go roughly according to plan, which they might not? Because that's going to help me run that spellcaster smoothly, because I can't flip through and decide. I have a list of like 20 spells. You can't sit there if you're the dungeon master running spellcasters in combat, you cannot sit there on every single one of your rounds and look at your spell list and think about what you're going to do and what you're going to cast. It bogs the game down. What you really should be doing as a dungeon master is, prior to the game session, if you're running spellcasters, determine what they're going to do in their first 3 rounds, or at least what are the spells they really want to use or you want to use. Okay, we're definitely using Spirit Guardians because holy blender, we're just going to grind them up. All 4 of our priests are going to throw down Spirit Guardians in the very first round. Done. That's what we're doing in the first round. All right, second round, we're casting Spiritual Hammer and Flame Strike. Done. We're getting that going. Those are the first 2 rounds. They're all going to do the same thing. Third round, we're going to start dodging. Why? Because it makes it harder to hit us, which makes it harder to interrupt our Spirit Guardians. There you go. I have my first 3 rounds of combat decided. All 4 of my priests are going to lay down a massive area of effect of Spirit Guardians. They're going to have Spiritual Hammers up, and they're going to have the flaming thing, the flame call down, Sacred Flame, and then they're going to dodge. There you go. I have decided. Or you could swap it and you could say cast Spiritual Weapon and then dodge in the second round. And the third round, I don't know, whatever. But you make those decisions before the game ever starts. That way you run those spellcasters smoothly in combat and you don't have to flip through a whole bunch of spells and stuff. And remember, your spellcasters are going to die after about 3 rounds. So you only got 3 rounds of spells to work with anyway. So use your best spells, or use the spells that you most want to use against your PCs. For me, that's usually the best spells. I'm going to die in 3 rounds. I'm going to go Glass Cannon and just blast you with everything I have. When is my next game? We're literally playing Curse of Strahd this Sunday. It's going to be on my Twitch channel. Link to my Twitch channel right there in chat. Thank you, moderators. We're trying to play in person, but one of my players, who's our host, when he's not able to play, we don't have a place to play, and so we just run online. We play it online. Oh, did I? Oh no, I got that one. Okay, cool. My players are apparently playing in another DM's game. They're cheating on you. Your players are cheating on you. What's this? Myther, your players are running around on you, dude. Oh. So the first thing you need to do, the very first thing you need to do is your very next game session, you kill all of their PCs. TPK, you TPK them. And then, after you've torn up their character sheets and they are crying at your game table and sobbing with tears streaming down their faces, asking why have you killed my precious character? When they have been reduced to that state, then you explain to them calmly, with no mercy in your heart and no remorse, that they are not to cheat on you ever again, or far worse will happen. So that's the first thing you need to do. So that is the very first step you take, sir. You do not allow your players to cheat on you in your games. Whew. No mercy for that. And the question continues. I didn't actually answer your question quite yet. And they are constantly getting the two stories mixed up. What do I do? Well, I'll tell you what, once you TPK them, they're not going to get anything mixed up anymore. Because that campaign's over. They're all dead. You're going to start from scratch. And they're gonna stop seeing that other dungeon master. They're gonna stop playing in that other game. You're gonna play in your game. And you're gonna start all over again. You start your whole story over again. And you're gonna sear that story into their minds, is what you're gonna do. There you go. That's how you solve that problem. Players cheating on you. A bunch of messed up stuff right there. Not actually serious about that, folks. Don't do that. I got some people who are like, wow, Luke he's a bad person. We could get him canceled. Somebody clip that. Somebody clip that. He's a very bad person. If they're getting the two stories mixed up, like, you're screwed. What are you gonna do? I mean, you can ask them. You can ask them to take notes or something, and good luck with that. I have players who take notes, and I appreciate it because then they actually can remind the other players what's going on. I don't really have a solution for you, dude. If they can't keep stories straight in their minds, then I don't know what to tell you. You can encourage them to take notes. Yeah, I think my first answer was better. The fake answer was better than the real answer. Where was this? Chaz Moss is like, what did I walk into? I mean, do a recap at the start of each session. Yeah, I think that's, you know what, that's a better answer. You know what, chat's gonna take over the live stream tonight. Yeah, have them do a recap at the beginning. I mean, it's an obvious thing. It's something that you should always be doing at the beginning of all of your games. Like literally every single one of my games begins with a recap. And I always have my players do the recap. Always. Usually we'll pick one player who does the recap. Other players will pitch in and help. There may be times that I remind them of other things that their characters would know that they should be clear about as well. But my players do the recap. They help each other out. Usually one of them has a fairly good memory, and then I will remind them of certain events. If you do a recap at the beginning of your game session, that should really help a lot. And then for that game session, at least, they will have clear in their mind some stuff of the story. Now, there could be other things they forget about or they get mixed up. You can't control that, but a recap will help a little bit, probably. Yeah, I never do the recap as a dungeon master. I do not like doing the recap as a dungeon master. Because I know everything that happened. But I oftentimes have more information than my players do. I always have more information than my players do. Always. I know things they don't know. So when I'm doing a recap, sometimes if I do the recap, it might be hard for me to distinguish between what they know and what I know. And I might leak stuff to them they shouldn't know. And so I don't like talking about those things, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense. I prefer to have my players do the recap. I also want, you know, one of them to kind of explain what they remember happening as well. And then I fill in gaps if I feel it's needed. Toxico Kami says, are we meeting in YouTube from now on? Not necessarily. My wife likes YouTube more. I was talking to my wife today. I was like, you know, I kind of don't like Twitch. I don't like Twitch. And there's two reasons why. There's a couple reasons why I don't like Twitch. One, One, Twitch has a couple different types of streams that they allow that I think as a business I don't like. You guys may have heard of the hot tub streams and stuff on Twitch, which are essentially like almost naked people in hot tubs, usually women, and usually to get money. And I don't like that. I think that they allow it, and I think that is not a good thing in this world. So I don't like Twitch because of that. They also allow gambling streams. They literally have people streaming gambling stuff, which is encouraging other people to go gamble and lose money and stuff and get addicted and all this kind of stuff. So I don't like that either. So there's a couple types of streams that, and there are probably others too that I'm not even aware of, that they allow on their platform that I think are bad for people as a whole. And are just morally not good things, in my opinion. And they're also very greedy. They're a very greedy platform. They take 50% of all creator revenue. 50% of all creator revenue they take, and they don't share any ad revenue with creators who are not partnered. They're very, very greedy. They also don't allow variable bitrate streaming, which means that I right now am streaming at full HD. However, if you're on a mobile device with a bad internet connection for whatever reason, YouTube will automatically adjust the bit rate down to something that your internet connection can handle. Twitch doesn't do that. If I usually stream at 720 with Twitch, which is just HD, not full HD, and that's so that people with bad internet connections can actually watch it. But if your internet connection can't handle that on Twitch, you just can't watch my stream, because I don't have variable bitrate streaming on Twitch. So there are various reasons that I don't like Twitch. So I'm considering just screwing that platform, or just saying screw you, or just leaving it, whatever. You understand me. Eric from Phoenix, hello. Thank you, sir, for the $4.99 super chat. I appreciate that. Luke, disappointed I couldn't make LairCon. Hopefully I can make it next year. Love the content and need to join your Patreon. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate. I mean, I wish. One of the things I loved about LairCon, honestly, one of the things I loved about LairCon, honestly, was seeing people. I loved seeing people in person. I spent much of the convention just talking to all the people that came. Not all of them. There were some people that I did not get a chance to talk to. They were running games and stuff, and I really wanted to go say hi, but I didn't want to interrupt their game and be like, "Hi, I'm Luke. I didn't get to say hi before." There were a few people I remember seeing that I didn't get to say hi to. But yeah, I spent most of the time just talking to people, hanging out with people, saying hi and stuff like that, and it was fun. I was in games with people, and I was constantly getting up from the game and just going and saying hi to people. And then I'd be like, "Hey, is it my turn yet? No? Okay." And then I'd go off. One of my moderators, Dave, was running a game. He was running Dread for us. And I was constantly getting up and walking away and going and saying hi to people and stuff. So one of the things I loved about it was just being able to say hi to people and see people face to face. It was really cool. We're actually considering having LairCon be in a different place each year. Instead of always being in one place, rotating it where we put it. That will give opportunity to more people to come meet me and my team and hang out with us. And so we were thinking about doing that. And I think that's a really cool idea. Now, we're not gonna be able to do that everywhere. We will be limited to where I have boots on the ground for reasons. But that's something I was considering doing. And I kind of have my eye on Florida for next year's LairCon. So unofficial leak of information right there. So hopefully we can see you. Oh, hey, I did miss a super chat. How many did I miss? I got that one. Dream Cream, thank you for the $5 super chat. Appreciate that. What is your take on joke characters, such as a Conquest Paladin named Strahd and a Curse of Strahd party for a Strahd vs. Strahd action? That doesn't excite me at all. It's metagaming. It's like, yeah, it's totally metagaming. That doesn't do it for me. Especially not when I'm running Strahd. Strahd. If there's going to be any campaign that has a serious tone to it, it's Strahd. You're running Curse of Strahd. That is not the campaign for a joke character. There might be campaigns for a joke character, but not Strahd. We laugh and we have fun and we have jokes and we do silly things at the game table, but there are certain parts of the game that you take more seriously, at least when I'm running a game, and there are other parts that are more able for joking and stuff like that, and that sort of thing doesn't do it for me. Thank you for the $2 super chat, Dream Cream. Do you put mayonnaise on hot dogs? I don't, personally, but I would have no compunctions about doing it at all, because I routinely put mayonnaise on sandwiches, and a hot dog is basically a sandwich. If you take your average sandwich, Goliath Cleric is our resident expert on sandwiches. If you take your average sandwich, what are the components of a sandwich? You have bread, and then in between the bread you put usually some sort of meat, and then usually like lettuce or some vegetables, lettuce, tomatoes, you know. So you have meat, vegetable, bread. That is the component of a sandwich. And many sandwiches have mayonnaise on them, or ketchup, or relish, or whatever. You can put lots of different types of dressings on your sandwich. So those are the components of a sandwich. Now, if we analyze a hot dog, what is a hot dog essentially? You have two pieces of bread that are connected by a sliver of bread, which we call a bun. But essentially a hot dog, a bun, is two pieces of bread. What do you put in between that bread? A piece of meat. What else do you put on a hot dog? Sometimes you put onions in there and other things, other types of vegetables. Relish is kind of a vegetable. It's a cousin of a vegetable, I suppose. So a hot dog is essence a sandwich that you've turned like this. And it's a little bit more self-contained, so stuff doesn't fall out of it quite as easily. But essentially a hot dog is kind of a sandwich. And if you can put mayonnaise on sandwiches, then you can put mayonnaise on hot dogs. And so I think they're pretty interchangeable. So that is my theory on hot dogs and mayonnaise. Prove me wrong. Is a taco a sandwich? Well, tacos are made out of tortillas. You wouldn't typically call a tortilla thing a sandwich. You'd call it a wrap or a burrito or a taco. So it's technically a little bit different because now we're getting away from bread. Sandwiches are made from bread typically, some sort of bread. Whereas tacos, you're no longer really using bread, you're using tortillas, which is unleavened bread, essentially, if you're doing a flour tortilla. If you're doing a corn tortilla, we got a whole different story there. By the way, always go corn tortillas. Corn tortillas all the way. Like that's the way to go. The flour tortilla crap somebody needs to burn that stuff down. Oh, it's the hot that turns me away from mayo on a hot dog. Oh, I could see that. I a lot of times will heat up my sandwiches though. Like I'll put them in the toaster oven to get the bread warm and stuff. So sandwiches are still usually warm in my book. I usually don't have cold sandwiches. Goliath Cleric says tacos are not a sandwich. I stand by that. I do agree with that. They're not sandwiches. We are getting hungry now. I have food. And now I can't talk. All right, we're going to the cat cam. where you can see two of my cats. We have Orange, and then over here we have Squirty Pie. Go Robo is gonna go make a sandwich. Yeah, I prefer soft-shelled tacos too. I really don't like hard-shelled a whole lot. Amber, what's up? How you doing? Amber just got home. AJ Silver Radio, what's up, dude? Corn tortillas are crumbly. They are. So you do have to deal with that. You just use forks. Philip says, I was planning on running a 50-50 or even 30-70 RPG to combat play. So like social interactions, so like 30% social interactions, 70% combat. But the modules are written to talk to others, and my group tends to want to drag out all the conversations with each NPC, making the game 70-30. Oh, so your group wants to. Okay, cool. I thought that was a question. I was like, oh, I'm gonna answer this question, and then it wasn't a question. Whoops. This is why I shouldn't read chat, right? Hard shells break too easy. Yeah, they do. Is cereal a soup? Most soups are warm though, right? No, cereal can't be a soup. Soups usually have meat and vegetables and stuff in them. You can have cream soups, obviously, or you can have more brothy soups, but they almost always have totally different type of ingredients in them. Cereal is usually not even, and then you have the health perspective. Many soups are somewhat beneficial for you, whereas cereal is pretty much garbage. It's mostly just sugar and flour and other garbage and stuff in there. Cereal's really, really bad for you. If you look at cereal boxes and the crap that's in cereal, it's sugar and flour and stuff. Like, that's not good for you. Like, we shouldn't be pumping ourselves full of like heavily refined flour and sugar and all the other crap that goes into cereal. It's not really good for you. However, if you look at soup, and I'm thinking more of like homemade soup, not like a Campbell's garbage, but like I made it myself. I boiled the chicken in the broth and I put the vegetables in. I chopped the vegetables and I put them up. If you're like looking at a soup like that, oh my gosh, it's the health benefits is really good for you. Whereas a cereal is like, that's not good for you. So I don't think that we can call them the same. Cereal cannot be a soup. Cannot be a soup. Sort of a DM. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate that. I enjoy your perspective. Happy Halloween to you in chat. Thank you. Appreciate that. Are we really taking time away from DM questions to talk about mayonnaise and cereal? Yes! And you know what? Now we're gonna take time away from DM questions to give my cats some cat crack. I have been provoked to take another tangent. Well done, sir. My cats are now getting cat crack. I have been criticized for running my live stream and having fun. And now we're doing a cat trip. It's funny. It's funny. There was another person who whose name I cannot mention, who apparently gets really easily offended. They have a YouTube channel. They apparently get really, really easily offended. They had a video out there about top 5 things that you shouldn't say to X type of gamer person. I don't want to get too specific because you'll be able to find out who I'm talking about. And they were like, one of the things that you're not supposed to tell X gamer group is you're not supposed to criticize what they're doing at all. You're not supposed to give them any constructive feedback. Literally, don't give them constructive feedback. And then they had some reasons which I didn't think were very good. And people obviously were like, okay, so you're saying that, you know, and so people didn't like some of these things this person was talking about. And guess what they did? They turned their comments off. It's like, my skin is too thin. So I can't take any constructive criticism. So I'm just turning comments off now. Thank you very much. Like, I'm just like, wow, you should not be on YouTube if you have a thin skin. Like, the public sector is not, like, this is not what you should be doing. You should not be doing videos. You should not be doing these things if you have a thin skin. If you can't take criticism, if you can't take people in your comment section saying hurtful things to you, like, if you can't take that, then you probably shouldn't be doing this line of work. Like, it is not cut out for you. So yeah. Why did I say that? Oh, yeah, because I was kind of making fun of the person who criticized me about talking about cereal and mayonnaise. I was messing with you. Because I don't really care. I get criticized all the time. I just don't care. Anyway, we are doing a cat trip though. All right, let's do this. All right, we have assembled here, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you have a coffee cam. We have here the banana and the happy carrot. And we are now going to apply the cat crack. It's also known as catnip. It's called catnip, ladies and gentlemen. YouTube is right now taking this video down.
Oh, this video is about drugs.
No, it's not. It's about cats. And we're putting catnip on a happy carrot. All right, calm down, YouTube. I'm gonna get a call from Susan. She's gonna be like, "Hey, what's Luke? I heard you." No, that's not gonna happen. All right, my Squeaky's going crazy. Here we go. Squeaky, let's go. Calm down, buddy. Yeah. All right, he's gonna start going crazy. And then I'm gonna put another one out here. Okay, he wants that one too. So now he's gonna take both of them. Instead of letting his brother and sister play, he's gonna take both of them. He's very, very, very greedy. Excellent. Most of the time I am against people turning off comments and the like-dislike ratios. It's kind of cringe. Yeah, I don't, people, dude, I hate it when I go into a video and the comments are turned off. It's like, okay, yeah. Is super chatting a question you asked earlier loud or rude? I'm not gonna say anything about it. Like, I have so many questions on here. If you really want yours to get answered, super chat it, and I guarantee you it'll get answered. And if I somehow miss it, my moderators will yell at me. They've already been doing that. All right, I'm gonna get some more coffee. I'll be right back. Watch my cats. They're adorable.
Pero en otra mujer, por más que quiera la distancia no se acaba. ¿Qué harías si tus manos volvieran otra vez? O si el amor que un día te tuve fuera más grande que los nubes. Lo hicimos en la habitación, qué rico mami. Pero en cosas del amor mucho fallaban. No veía nada, mi amor, algo esperaba de tu mirada.
Got more coffee. This is decaf, by the way. Yeah. I know I just broke somebody's hearts. Is Danny here? I just broke Danny's heart. She is an adamant. Must be normal coffee. Ooh, I'm gonna answer that one. Look at him. Here he goes. He's about to run off like a maniac.
He like rolls around and then he'll just jump on his feet and race away. Yeah, disagreement is awesome. I love people who disagree. And being able to have a civil conversation and talk about things and disagree about things and not want to kill each other is a beautiful thing. I love that. I think that's something that's a problem with our world, is we can't have conversations, you know, without like, if people disagree, oftentimes they just want to kill each other, as opposed to just being like, you know what, I disagree with you on this topic. But that's okay because we agree on other things. We can still be friends and that sort of thing. So I love differing opinions because they challenge one's thinking and stuff like that, make you think different ways. And maybe you're wrong. Maybe you change your mind on stuff. And so that's always a great thing. I have one moderator who frequently will express opinions that differ from like almost everybody else's and differ from mine. And I appreciate the crap out of that moderator because they challenge my thinking and help me think in different ways and help me to consider other perspectives that I might not have thought about. This is the idea of like blue team and red team. Like when you have an idea, you need people that are going to, you know, pick it apart and think of all the negative parts of it, you know, so you can thoroughly consider whether it's a good idea to do something or not. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's a beautiful thing. All right, let's get some questions going on here. Woo! Before I get yelled at again.
Luke!
Okay,
Luke! Answer my question!
Would you modify Strahd's stat block to make him more challenging? Heck yeah! Strahd is a big fat wuss. His worst stupid, like I was looking at Strahd's stat block. My players are gonna fight him. And I'm like, if I don't modify his stat block, they're gonna kill him so easily. Are you kidding me? I have a player who can deal 50 points of damage per round. They're gonna murderize him. Strahd is a big fat wuss. My players are only like level 7 right now. If my 5 level 7 players that I have right now in my Curse of Strahd game were to fight against Strahd as is, I think they would absolutely destroy him. They would just tear him apart. Of course I have to modify Strahd. I have to. Because Strahd is supposed to be terrifying. He is essentially a demigod as in like power in Barovia, in his domain of dread. So yeah, you gotta modify him. Yeah, absolutely. My players are about to fight Strahd this Sunday on my Twitch channel. We're gonna be streaming it at, what is it? Around 4:00 p.m. Eastern US time is roughly when the stream starts. And they're gonna be fighting Strahd. They're not in his castle though. Strahd has sought them out for reasons, which I don't need to get into here. And he has decided that he's talked to them many times. They've encountered Strahd a few different times, and it's never been a combat. Strahd he's a social villain. He likes to talk with people first. He likes to gauge them. He has different motivations and goals than just killing people. So anyway, they've spoken with Strahd before. They've had dinner with him. Yeah. This time though, Strahd has decided that the group has gone too far. They need to be punished. And he met them and he asked for a volunteer. He said, essentially, one of you is going to die today. Do I have a volunteer? And the monk, Varys, volunteered. and that's where we ended the game session. And now when we get back together again, Varys has volunteered and Strahd is not happy. So we're gonna see what happens. All right,
Thank you, Shy, for the $5 super chat. I appreciate it. Do you have any advice on how to get back into playing or doing after a horrible experience in a previous game? It's been a year and I can only draw maps. So what the very first thing that I would do is I would think about that experience. What was it about that experience that made it a bad experience for me? What happened exactly? And how did it make me feel that is now causing me, those feelings are intense enough that they're causing me not to want to play again. So what were those feelings? All right, let's identify those feelings. Now let's figure out what caused me to feel that way. What was it that happened that caused me to feel that way? Okay, cool. I've identified those things. Now, going forward in the future, are there measures that I can take? You can call them safety protocols. You can give them whatever fancy word you want. But are there things that I can do that can help prevent or those undesirable things that caused the undesirable feelings that then led me to not wanting to run the game? So work backwards to the root cause, and then see if there are things you can put in place, things you can do that will prevent that from happening again. And then try to put those things in place. So your unique circumstances, whatever it happened, and I don't want to really ask because it could be private and stuff, but work backward and try to figure out what those things are. And then working on those things and putting those things in place will should help you feel more comfortable about then giving it another go and playing again. So let's just pretend that it was a player. You had a player in there that was second guessing everything that you did and was just causing it to be miserable for you. They were criticizing your calls as a dungeon master, that you were doing a bad job and all of this sort of thing. And that was making you feel inadequate and frustrated and like you weren't having fun in the game. Okay, so cool. So what was the actual problem? Were you doing anything wrong? Not necessarily. Every DM screws up and makes mistakes and stuff, but the player doesn't have to criticize you and make you feel bad about it. They could just play the game, or if that's a game breaker, they can move on or something. So maybe it's just it could be as simple as, hey, don't play with that player. Goodbye. And then if I play the game, maybe I'm fine. So I think that's the way you would do it and try to work back that way. That would be my suggestion for how to do that, because that sucks to have a bad experience that turns you off and then you don't want to play again. So I would encourage you to try to do that. And then I would encourage you to try to avoid the things or put things in place that would help you not to feel the same way, and then try again and see how it goes. And hopefully it goes better. Your maps are very good though. What is your opinion on converting old adventures into 5th edition? I have a positive opinion on it. If you'd like to do it for your groups, that's cool. There you go. Generic question, you get a generic answer. Don't know what to tell you, that's all I got. I've never heard of that YouTuber or whatever that is, so I have no idea. Theater of the mind. I can only imagine this technique viable if you have a large vocabulary. Your opinion, please. I don't think it requires a large vocabulary. The thing that makes theater of the mind, there are two things, or there are a handful of things that make running theater of the mind easier. Well, first of all, when you say large vocabulary, it seems like you're referring specifically to one aspect of theater of the mind, which is describing things to your players so that they can understand what's going on. So that doesn't require a large vocabulary to describe a situation to your players and describe what's going on. Now, if you want to be eloquent and poetic, then big words and a larger vocabulary is going to help you with that. But it's not required. You don't have to look. You don't got to be Matt Mercer and have this amazing eloquent description, to be able to run theater of the mind. That is not what you have to do. To run theater of the mind, especially if we're talking about the part of describing things to your players so that they know what's going on, you don't need to have a large vocabulary. One thing that helps a lot is to be able to imagine it in your own mind, to see it in your own mind, to see the sword slice across their throat, to see the gap open and blood beginning to gush out, and then to see the orc grab its throat, gurgling, to see its knees crumpling below it, and to see it slump down and fall to the ground, and to see the blood beginning to spread into a pool across the grass. If you can see that here, then you can simply describe to your players what you are already seeing in your mind. All right. So that, in my opinion, more than anything else, that is the biggest thing that I do that helps me describe things to my players, like I just did for you, is first see it in your mind. And then what you see, you begin describing. You just begin describing to your players. If you don't have a big vocabulary, that doesn't prevent you from describing what you see. It just means that maybe you don't know the word crumpling. I don't know. Maybe that was a big word or something, and you don't use that. You just say falling or something. So that will help you. The other thing that really helps with being able to describe things narratively to your players is reading books that have descriptive language. That will help you a ton. Reading books. I read crap loads of fantasy books. I grew up reading Ari Salvatore's Drizzt series, which I love. And I've read Robert Jordan's crap. I've read R.R. Martin's stuff as well. Prolific fantasy authors. You read their stuff and you are constantly putting your mind into somebody's work who is describing things narratively, using big words, using nice descriptions, whatever. And when you're constantly reading this stuff and it's constantly going into your mind, it helps you to be able to do it yourself. So that is something that can help a lot, which doesn't really have to do with the big vocabulary, but your vocabulary will probably expand as you read those things. And then the third thing that happens is practice. Simply practicing. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So there you go. So I don't think a large vocabulary is necessary at all. There are some other things that help though. Wesley, thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate that, dude. I don't have reference for how tough to make my big bad. I am doing a level 2 to 15 campaign and chose Tivilius as my big bad with a Drow house captain with a few Megarian. There are 5 players. So here's the thing, dude. It sounds like you're currently in campaign planning. In other words, your campaign is just going to begin. Like, your players are like at level 2 and they're going to go to level 15. So right now, if you haven't actually begun playing, you don't need to worry about it too much. The actual stat block you're going to use, and if you've chosen them to be hard enough or not, and who their minions are going to be, you don't really need to worry about that too much. Now, it is good to know who the big bad is, because you want to know their motivations and what they're doing in the game world and how that affects the game world and how that affects the players, and then the plot hooks, and then you want to then there are lieutenants and stuff. There are things going on, and as the players go along this main campaign arc, they're going to do these things and things and things and things, and then it leads them to a final, theoretically, confrontation with the big bad. So yes, you need to know the big bad, you need to know the motivations, you need to know what they're doing in the world so that you can actually run your campaign, right? That's all necessary, but you don't really need to know their stat block until you actually need to know their stat block, which is when they're actually gonna fight the big bad. So you're gonna go from 2 to 15. And if your campaign lasts that long and they are getting close to where they might actually confront the big bad, that's when you start worrying about their challenge rating. That's when you worry about their stat block. Your players might end up going after the big bad when they're level 12. Who knows? For reasons. And then at that point, the monster you chose might be a little too powerful and you might need to downgrade it a little bit. They might end up, campaign could take longer. They end up getting a higher level or something. Who knows? And then you have to upgrade things. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. In my Sword Coast Guard game that we finished that campaign a year and a half ago, maybe something like that, maybe 2 years ago, before we started Curse Estrad, we were running a Sword Coast Guard campaign, and Lord, what's his name? Lord Paxton. Lord Paxton was the big bad. I ran an entire campaign from level, I think we started around level 5. We were doing Prince of the Apocalypse and we lost interest, and then we moved to my Sword Coast Guard campaign. So I think they were around level 5. We went from level 5 to 17, and I had no idea what Lord Paxton's stat block was. I had no idea. I had zero idea. All I knew is that Lord Paxton was this figure, this person. My players didn't even know what he was. They had no idea who he was or what, and they knew what he was doing. They heard about him all the time. They ran into his lieutenants. They knew he was building an empire that was covering the Sword Coast. They knew that he wanted to restore the giant empire of Astoria, and he was calling it New Astoria, and he was gathering vassals together. So they knew that, but they didn't really know who he was or what he was. They just knew what he was doing, and they heard about him. And I had no idea what his stat block was. I did not create his stat block until like when I was preparing the actual adventure where they were going to confront Lord Paxton. That's when I made his stat block. That's when I decided what his stat block was going to be. So my point is that I wouldn't worry about it too much until you actually are going to use it. And then at that point, you're going to punch some math. You're going to do some numbers and stuff. You're going to understand your players' characters. You're going to know roughly how powerful they are. There are lots of different character classes and combinations that are way more powerful than others. And if your players are playing those, then you know your big bad needs to be stronger, and you can make it more difficult. I can also tell you at level 15, for your big bad, the final encounter probably needs to be twice the deadly threshold, even up to 3 or 4 times the deadly threshold. You need to have a big bad, and you need to have some minions. Lots of minions. Tough minions too. You have to get their action economy diversified over the combat. They cannot all be targeting the big bad, or bad things will happen. I don't care if he has legendary resistances or legendary actions. Lair actions, it doesn't matter. He needs minions. And I have an entire video about creating big bads. How to create the perfect boss, I believe is how it's called. I have 2 videos, part 1 and part 2. Part 2 focuses in on high level bosses. And so there's a whole bunch of information there that you can use that's going to help you as well. So yeah, there's some information for you. I hope that helps. What was that? That was a super chat, right? Okay, cool. Thank you, Wesley. Appreciate that. I hope that helped, dude. Thank you, Shy, for the $2 super chat. I appreciate that. Opinion on text-only D&D games on a Discord server. I played a text-only D&D game for about 2 years. This was back probably about 15, 20 years ago, and it was play by post. It was literally a play by post. So it wasn't even live. I would literally post several paragraphs of information. My players would post what they're going to do, and then I would tell them what happened based upon what they did. And we would just go back and forth posting, and that's how we ran a game. So it is 100% viable. I did it for 2 years. I had fun. I loved it. It was great. You did not have to set aside time. I mean, I'm specifically talking about play by post. You're talking about text, probably live texting. So there's a little bit of a difference there. The beautiful thing about play by post is you didn't have to set aside time to actually play. You could just do a post. A post might take you 5 minutes each night to do a little post, and the next day you read what happened, and then you post again. And so it was really good on the time aspect of it. Now, if you're specifically talking about texting, and it's a live texting thing where everybody's there at the same time sending messages, I've never done that before. My brain is immediately thinking that would be challenging, because you could have players, especially Discord, you could have just lines of text of people saying different things, and you as the dungeon master are like, wow, they're moving really fast, they're saying a whole bunch of stuff. You're trying to adjudicate something that somebody posted like 10 lines up, and you barely get it posted, and then you have 9 more lines to deal with because they're chatting and doing things and saying things. So you could probably, as the dungeon master, you could find yourself swamped with trying to keep up with their chat, because you have like 5 people posting and there's just one of you trying to respond to them. I think you would probably have to put some guidelines in place, such as you declare one action in one post and you don't say anything else until I'm able to adjudicate what happens. You probably need to have some sort of organization and controls in place to make that viable for you as a dungeon master in order for you to be able to run it, would be my thoughts on that. But if you did that, and you had some, if it weren't total chaos and you had some control mechanisms put in place to make it actually work, I think that could be fine and work really well. But be cognizant that you could run into those difficulties, I think. And so I've never done that before, but that's the first thing that pops in my mind. When are you going to make that video about the necessity of doors and dungeons? Didn't I already do that? Quasums, when did we do that video? I've made that video. I have scripted that video. I have filmed that video. I think that video is coming out in November. Yeah. So it's done. I don't think I've published it yet. I work way far in advance, so it's hard for me to keep track of what's actually out there and what I've just finished. I've finished, my editor still's working on it. With you being crazy busy doing so many awesome things, do you ever find time to interact with your Discord? That's really hard. That is very hard for me to do. I have a patron VIP Discord channel. I try to pop in there and interact a little bit there. But that's the best I can manage. That's the very best I can manage. The beautiful thing is that we have lots of really experienced game masters on my Discord, and so for dungeon masters looking for help and advice and stuff, there are lots of experienced people over there that help out. So that is the beautiful thing. It's not all me. It's way far more people than just me, and lots of them are smarter and probably better game masters than I am. What would be your advice on running a game when everyone can't be at the table 100% of the time? It's mostly because of my schedule. I work 6 days a week with a mixed schedule. I mean, I think it's normal that you're going to have players that miss a game session every so often. I think the important part is to schedule at a time when most people can be there most of the time. If you have a player who's only there half of the time or less, then they probably shouldn't be a player in that game. They're just not there enough or something. But if somebody's missing like once every 4 or 5 game sessions, that's probably not that big of a deal. They're going to miss out on little stuff and they get a recap. Don't reschedule, don't skip the game session, run the game, but that one person is just not going to be there. That's life. Like if you don't run the game unless everybody is there, that's how you end up playing no Dungeons and Dragons. Because sometimes schedules just won't align for a few months, and so we don't play. I literally have a game right now that I don't know if we're ever gonna play again. That was like, well, I think it was like 2 months ago or something. We were gonna have a game, and then there were some scheduling problems, and then my power went out, and I got behind on work because I had no electricity. I can't work when I don't have electricity. And so I had to get caught up on work, so we couldn't have that game. And then I was trying to coordinate the next game session, and they're like, well, you know, we have all these sporting events we're involved in. I'm like, okay, maybe sometime in November. Okay. So I have no idea if that game is ever gonna happen again. My wife is calling me. Hola. 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 Marcito. Sí, diga. Sí, voy a dar un jalón a su amigo, a Bobby. Le recogió del trabajo y le dio un jalón para su casa. Ok. ¿Me estás viendo? Ok, bueno. Bueno, te amo. Ok, bye. That was my wife. I had to answer the phone. Whoever understood that, translate. All right. So there you go. That's the best I got, dude. I am a forever DM with a lot of character ideas and I want to play. Any advice on encouraging and equipping my players to try DMing? Yeah, make them do it, dude. I mean, if your players have been watching you be a dungeon master, they're probably learning a lot of the stuff that a dungeon master needs to do. What I would do is just be like, at a game session, be like, guys, I want to play the game. I have been your guys' dungeon master for like 2 years. I want to play the game also. Could one of you please run a one-shot for us? Run a little bit of a campaign. Take us from level 5 to 8. I don't care. but I want to take a break. I want to play the game as a player instead of playing it as a dungeon master. Would somebody please step up and do this, please? And talk with your players and get one of them to volunteer, and then help them and teach them and explain how things go, you know, and how things kind of work and what they do. And then let them take the reins and just let them do it. And just accept that they've never done it before. It might not be that great of a game, but that's okay, because you're getting to play that character you want to play. So I would go that route. You can, you know, volunteer one of them. Probably won't work that well. Hopefully you get a volunteer. Hopefully your players will be understanding and help you out.
Goodbye, Shy.
See you next time. You are very welcome. Ooh, new techniques for your maps? Cool. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Oh. This is a really good question. I should answer that question. My moderators are trying to tell me it's a really good question. My players seem to love my game, but over the last few months, I really have lost the love for DMing my own plot. Would it be unfair to the players to scrap our 2-year game and start anew? My gut reaction is yes. My players seem to love my game. I think the very first thing I would do is I would talk to my players. If I literally was running a game that I was losing, and it sounds like you said my own plot. It sounds like you're having trouble with a particular plot. Like maybe it's not just you don't like DMing, it's that you don't like the storyline, the plot that you're actually doing, and you're losing interest in that. So what I would say, I would just tell your players the bottom line of, hey guys, just, you know, level with them and say, yo, you know, we've been running this game for 2 years. I'm kind of losing interest in it. And the plot line no longer interests me. I want to see how you guys feel. Are you loving this campaign? Are you still having a great time doing it and stuff? And just find out what they think. Hopefully you'll get some honesty from them, and they'll tell you, you know, if they all are loving it, if they're having a great time doing it, then as the game master, I personally would probably try to stick it out, because I want to give them closure. I want, if they're all enjoying it and having fun, I would feel like I want them to feel the satisfaction of finishing this campaign. They're having fun doing it. I want them to finish this campaign. And the simple fact that I know that they're enjoying it and loving it and want to complete it, I think that would make me feel good in and of itself, even if I weren't enjoying the specifics of the storyline. I also think that you have a lot of freedom in what you're able to do as a game master as well. So if you don't like your particular storyline, that doesn't mean you can't change some things. Like, there are things your players already know. You don't want to necessarily tweak those things, because then it's like a incongruent, it's not, you know, you're changing things that they already know that have been revealed to them. So you don't want to change those things. What you want to change are other things they don't know about, that will make it more interesting for you. So the trick is to tweak things that you find more interesting, that will make the game more enjoyable for you, but that your players won't necessarily know that you're changing and tweaking. And then ideally what you're going to get is a happy balance between giving your players that satisfying campaign that you know they want to finish, that they want to keep on playing, but you're also doing things that are satisfying you. For instance, if I had a campaign that, here's an example. Curse of Strahd. We're running it. I think my players are enjoying it. There are certain parts of it that aren't necessarily very satisfying to me. I find I find a lot of the monsters in it to be just very bland and boring. And I think that, so like the monsters are bland and boring, and they're not challenging enough for my players. My players are, some of them have built very powerful characters. Some of them have not, but some of them definitely have. And the monsters and the way things are built in Curse of Strahd, it's not challenging enough for them. And the monsters are all boring because they use standard monster manual monsters. It's just very boring. So what I have started doing for my Curse of Strahd game to make it more interesting for me is I have started taking a lot of those monsters, throwing them away, and instead using monsters from Tome of Beasts and Tome of Beasts 2 from Kobold Press. Those two books are amazing, by the way. Highly, highly, highly recommend those books. I love those books. So that's what I started to do. And so I would recommend a similar approach for you. So keep parts of the camp. So my players want to play Curse of Strahd. I'm not taking that away from them because I don't like some of the aspects of Curse of Strahd. Instead, what I'm doing is I'm still giving them Curse of Strahd, but I'm tweaking things behind the scene to make the game more fun for me, to satisfy my desires as a game master and what makes the game fun for me. So I would suggest you do the same thing. The other thing that you have control over as a game master is, especially if you're doing a homebrew campaign, who says the campaign has to last this long? You could easily cut that campaign a little bit shorter if you're not enjoying it quite so much. And then the campaign will get over sooner and you can do something else that you enjoy more. Your players will still get closure. They'll still get to finish the campaign. They'll still get to go against the big bad boss. It'll just happen a little bit sooner. And then you'll wrap things up and then you can go to your next thing. I did this for my Sword Coast Guard game. Almost all of my homebrew campaigns go to level 20. That's just what we do. That's how I do it. We were gonna go to level 20, but I had discussed with my players, hey guys, after we finish this campaign, because we were like level 15 or something, we were getting up there. After we finish this campaign, I would like to run a module. I would like to run Curse of Strahd for you. What do you guys think? Yes, let's run Curse of Strahd. Excellent. So at that point, we knew that Curse of Strahd was coming and we were all excited to play Curse of Strahd. And I was losing a little bit of interest in the current campaign. And so instead of going to level 20, and because my players were really excited about Curse of Strahd, I instead made the campaign go to level 17. And they fought the big bad boss at level 17. So what I did, I had a main story arc that had to do with Lord Paxton, but I had a secondary main story arc that had to do with this cult of Drazovine. They were basically trying to get an elder evil back into this own plane. And so I had these two story arcs that were going along, and that was going to help take the campaign all the way to level 20. But the point that we established that we wanted to play Curse of Strahd, and I decided to wrap the campaign up a little earlier, I took that whole thread of the cult of Drazovine and I just stopped advancing it. None of the quests had that in it anymore. I just took that out because the main campaign arc that my players were really thinking about was Lord Paxton. And I finished that one out. I took the other one out and then we wrapped it up a little bit sooner. And so things like that are things that you can do as well to shorten the length of your campaign. Your players still get satisfaction. They still get to finish it, but you shorten it up so that you can move on to something else that you enjoy. And so if you feel like you're losing desire in your current campaign and the plot line, the storyline, those are things that you can do. Now, of course, if you talk to your players and you think they're enjoying the game, but you ask them, hey, are you guys having fun? And they're like, we're having fun, but there's fun and then there's fun. And we're kind of fun. If you find out that, then you could say, hey, well, I have also not been having fun, but I've been having fun. What would you guys think if we switched things up a little bit, did something a little bit different? What do you guys think about that? Now, if your players probably will be like, yeah, we could do that if we want to. But if you get the feeling that they really want to finish the campaign, then I would do what I already suggested. But if you get the feeling from your players when you have this candid conversation with them that they would be perfectly fine with just doing something else, then maybe that's what you do. Maybe you shift into something else. And here's the other thing I want to say too. In your original question, you said you've been doing it for 2 years. I think that's important because that points to the fact that you're not just changing your mind about your campaign storyline willy-nilly. Like you're not like every 3 game sessions, you're like, okay guys, okay, here's the thing. We're going to change what we're doing. You're not doing that. You've been running the same thing for 2 years. That is a commitment. That is consistency. So at that point, to change is less of a big deal by far than if you were changing like every 3 game sessions, like I said. So there's a few different suggestions for you, routes that you can take if you're losing your love of that particular storyline as a dungeon master.
All right, cool. Where was I? We are pretty much just answering super chats at this point, which is cool. Wesley Van, thank you, sir, for the $10 super chat. I appreciate that. This is my first time playing D&D, and I'm DMing, so that helped a lot. I'll hop over to Discord, but one more question. How do you create the map and terrain for your games? I have two different types of maps that I create. The first type of map that I make is I sketch it out on grid paper. Just grid paper that you use for like math a lot of times, do graphing and charting. I'll sketch a map out on grid paper. If I'm running it in person, that's all I need to do, because I'm gonna like draw it with a dry erase marker on the actual grid map at the game table. If I'm playing online, then I have two different things that I do. One, if I'm playing online, I can go into something like Incarnate and create a map myself. I've yet to do that. What I usually do, this is just me personally, because I can, I pay somebody else to make the map for me. I literally have a map that I'm going to be running for one of my games, and I'm paying somebody else to make the map for me in Incarnate, so that I just put it in Roll20 and I can run the game, because I don't want to use them. I don't want to have to go in there and spend 2 hours, 3-4 hours making the map. I just pay somebody else. Oh, here's $100. Go make some maps for me. Thank you very much. I am able to do that. That probably is not something most people can do, and that's fair. So you probably have to go do it yourself in Incarnate. Incarnate is a great software. It's what I recommend. I have different freelancers that create maps for me to use in my publications, and I've seen maps created from a variety of platforms. And I will definitely say that the maps from Incarnate have impressed me the most with how cool they look. Now, I do have some freelancers who I'm pretty sure also put things in Photoshop a little bit and do some stuff in Photoshop, because one of them in particular does some really cool stuff that I'm pretty sure they put in Photoshop, but I'm just speculating at that point. I have another one that does really cool stuff by hand, but that's obviously drawing them by hand. So that's one method if you're creating your own maps by hand and then getting them into a final product that you can use on like Roll20 or something. The other thing I do a lot also is I will use a pre-existing map. Literally, I will pull a pre-existing map from a book and I will create an adventure to that pre-existing map. For instance, where is this? I literally have one of my groups right now has decided to go to a dungeon and clear it out. And I didn't think they were going to go there. I had no idea they were going to go there. And the last game session, they announced to me that, you know what? We're going to that dungeon right there and we're going to kill everything in it. And I was like, huh. I didn't think they were going to do that. I didn't really give them plot hook to do that. It was an unintentional plot hook. I introduced as they were learning about this area, there were some people that were suffering and were being oppressed by the people that live in this dungeon. And it wasn't really a plot hook, but my players decided that they needed to go get justice. And so now they're going to that dungeon and they're going to kill everybody. So they now are going there. So it's one of those plot hooks that you didn't mean to give your players. You didn't actually want them to go there, but they decided they're going to do the thing. And so I was like, crap, now they're going to go there. I need to create a dungeon for them to go play. Okay, cool. And I did not want to make a hand-drawn one and then commission somebody to go make the map. So what I'm literally going to do is I'm going to take one of the modules that I own, and I have a D&D Beyond subscription as well, which allows me to get these maps from here as an image file, which I can then put into Roll20, add dynamic lighting to it, and use the map. And so I guarantee you, and it might not be this module, but it's going to be a module. I'm going to flip through the module and I'm just going to find a map that I think I like. This is a really big map, so it might not be this one, but I'm literally going to find a map that I like.
and I am going to take a pre-existing map. I'm going to create a dungeon based upon that map, and then I'm going to use that in my game. And that's something that I do for other games as well. I will find a map that already exists, and I will create a dungeon based upon that map. I actually find it it's a lot easier in a lot of ways to take a pre-existing map and create a dungeon rather than having to like create the map first, then the dungeon. It's easier that way. There is comfort in boundaries, in being restricted in what you can do. And it makes it easier for some reason. The creative process is easier when I already have the boundaries of the map and stuff to work with. So anyway, that's another thing you can do as well. I think that's what the question was about. Yeah. And then terrain, I don't use terrain in my games. Like if you're talking about like 3D terrain, I don't really use that in my games. That stuff's expensive. Solo Quester, thank you for the $2 super chat. Appreciate that. How do you keep yourself from talking spoilers? I just don't do it. I don't do it. I don't know. Discipline? Self-control? I do not talk spoilers when one of my cats is playing with a laser pointer. I do not talk spoilers to my players. I might tell my wife about it. Yeah, but I don't talk to them about my players. Yeah, I'm gonna go with discipline and self-control. That's the answer. How do you handle telling enough lore to keep people interested, but not accidentally telling the group too much or more than they should know at the time? I'm intentional about it. Like, I plan it. I decide what they're going to learn. I want to give them just enough so that they can get from point A to point B, just enough so that they'll start to understand what's going on behind the scenes, just enough to pique their curiosity, but then I stop. There's a whole lot going on behind the scenes, for instance, in my Ancient Dragon campaign with the Fae and Demon Lord stuff, and they know about. There are things going on. They don't know everything. They don't know everything. I tell them some things. I want them to know a high-level picture, but not everything. And so I plan it out. I also think that more information isn't always a bad thing when you give your players more information. I think giving them too little information is probably, I would rather err, when I'm playing a game for my players, I would rather err on the side of giving them more information than giving them too little information. I am generally not stingy with the information that I give my players, whether it's about lore or other things. What is your quick opinion on marshals versus casters in 5th edition? Marshals are boring, casters are more interesting. Here's my quick opinion. I actually mostly play rogues. I enjoy playing rogues because they have a lot of options. They have a lot of different things they can do. I tend not to play casters either. I tend not to play spellcasters. Do you know why I don't like spellcasters? It's not because I think the spells are cool and stuff. When I'm a dungeon master, I love playing spellcasters. I love playing spellcasters because it makes combats more interesting when you have a variety of different effects. This is one of the reasons I hate counterspell, because it makes the game more boring. Like, if you look at a D&D combat that just has people swinging weapons and doing damage with melee combat, it's kind of boring. But when you have spellcasters, they can have magical effects that do cool things. That makes the combat way more interesting. So if you have a wizard or somebody who's constantly using counterspell, I understand why they want to do that, because they're avoiding bad things. But it makes the combat way less interesting. And it prevents the dungeon master from doing cool things besides just standing there and swinging a sword. So that's one of the reasons I hate counterspell, because it makes the game less interesting for everybody. What was the question? Oh, we were talking about marshals. Yeah, so I usually don't play spellcasters, but the reason I don't play spellcasters is it's really hard for me to have a limit on the number of spells I can cast and the number of times I can cast them. Like when I'm going through an adventure, I'm always super conservative, and I never want to cast my spells because I never want to expend my spell slots. And so like I tend not to cast any leveled spells, and I only do cantrips. And that gets boring for me because I don't want to expend my resources in case I need them. I know it's illogical to a certain extent, and it's a psychological thing. I get that. But I have that like complex when I play spellcasters. As a dungeon master, it's not a problem because I know that my spellcaster is going to die in 3 rounds, so I can just cast my spells and have fun. When I'm a player, I have to worry more about conserving resources, so that I actually have spells left to fight the final boss guy and stuff like that. So that causes me not to use my spells, which causes me to have less fun. I know. So generally speaking, I actually tend to prefer melee classes because I can use all of their cool stuff and I don't have to worry about conserving resources too much. So yeah. As a dungeon master, love spellcasters. As a player, don't quite so much. For reasons, yeah. Stefan, they are gonna die in 3 rounds. Every spellcaster I put in the game as a dungeon master dies in 3 rounds. Or 1 round. If they get next to them and beat on them, they're dead. I can deploy a CR12 Archmage against my level 7 players, even with some minions, and I guarantee you, one of them is gonna get next to that Archmage. 2 of them are gonna get next to the Archmage in the first round. And they're going to kill him in the very first round, unless I do things to make sure that doesn't happen. You have to plan and intelligently to keep your spellcasters alive. Anyway, that's a different topic. Are feats worth allowing? They seem to wind up with people flipping through the rulebooks instead of being focused on fun, exciting gameplay, less roleplay than roleplay. That has to do with players not understanding how feats work. That's a different problem altogether. The problem is not the feats. You could say that about anything in the game. You could say, are spells worth having? Because they result in people flipping through the rulebooks and reading about what their spells do. You could say, are all of these special abilities for paladins necessary? Because paladins they have so many different special abilities that players have to look in the rulebook and understand how that works. You could say, are having different combat options worth it? Being able to push and shove and grapple, are all of these things worth it? Because people have to look into the rule books and understand how those things work. You could use that line of argument for anything in the rule books. Is X worth having because people need to learn the rules about it? So that the whole, if you boil that down to the premise of that line of reasoning, it's an illogical argument, because you could say that about anything in the game. So the answer is no. I mean, the answer is yes, they're worth having. The problem is not feats. The problem is your players don't understand how they work, and so they constantly have to figure out how they work again. So the problem is not the game mechanic. The problem is your players. They need to learn how those things work, so they're not having to look them up and bog the game down. So that's the actual root cause that needs a solution. It's not the feats. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. All right, get new bathwater, or clean the bathwater up, or something. However you do that with babies. Yeah. What about you as a DM using counterspell? I usually only do it if my players do it, because I want them to feel how it feels to not be able to do anything in the combat. So if I don't have players using counterspell on me all the time, I don't use it on them. That's my basic rule for counterspell. So if I have a wizard, like right now I have a wizard in Curse of Strahd who's always counterspelling me. And so you better darn well believe that if I have a spellcaster, I'm going to counterspell the crap out of him all over the place, because I want him to feel how I feel when he does it to me. And then if he stops doing it quite so much, I'm going to stop doing it to him. So yeah, that's kind of how I play with that. You want to take away my ability to do cool things, then I'm taking away your ability to do cool things. To put that in your pipe and smoke it. How do I get my players excited about my campaign? About to run Chris Rod for a group of friends and they seem unenthusiastic. Most failed to submit their backstories on time. So I don't know how to like get your players excited for your campaign. I can tell you how I would address your very specific circumstance. I would talk to your friends and say, hey guys, you guys don't seem excited to run this campaign. Is that true? Are you guys not excited? And why? And see what they say. If they aren't excited to run the campaign and they're like, yeah, we're not really excited and here's why. Well, then, okay, so let's not play a game you guys aren't excited about. What would you be excited to play? What do you want to play? Maybe Curse of Strahd's not for them. Maybe they're more excited about something else. Maybe you had a homebrew campaign that you ran for them that they loved. And now you're wanting to run a module and they're not quite so sure they're going to enjoy the module. Maybe your players love delving into their backstories and stuff, but you're going to run a module now. So what's the point of giving you a backstory? You're running a module. You're not even going to do anything with our backstories because we're running a module. So there are lots of different things there to talk about and discuss. It could very well be that the reason they didn't give you their backstories is that they don't think there's any point in having a backstory. Like if I have a dungeon master running a module for me, my backstory doesn't really matter for the dungeon master. It might matter to me to help me role play my character, but because we're running a module, I know my dungeon master is probably not going to do anything with my backstory, you know, so that there's probably not any sense in really worrying about it a whole lot. So there's a whole bunch of different things that could be going on there. I think you're focusing in, it seems like you're focusing in on my players aren't enthusiastic and they don't want to do it. But there could be a whole lot more going on there that is leading to that observation than you're aware of. And the only way to figure that out is to talk to them and ask them why they seem unenthusiastic and what you could do to make the game better for them. Because especially if the game hasn't even begun, if the campaign hasn't even begun, and they don't seem to be very interested in it, that's a time to take a time out, and have a conversation with your players so that you don't start a campaign that nobody wants to play. Because I would save you a lot of time and headache of preparing the campaign not to play it. So that's what I would say. My cat is racing around in the background. Yes, I agree. Communication is such a non-obvious thing for something that should seem so obvious. Yeah, it's and honestly, for probably 90% of the problems or situations or issues that a dungeon master runs into, 90% of them, the solution is in one form or another, talking to your players. That's almost always the solution. Talk to your players. I have a player who keeps on arguing with me. Talk to your player. I have players that are constantly late to the game session. I don't know what's going on. I don't want. Talk to your players. Why are you always late? Is there anything we can help doing? Should we move the game a little bit later? Talk to your players. Almost anything. The solution in some form or another usually is talk to your players. It depends, right? Like, Luke, I have trouble preparing for my games. I don't know how to prepare for my games. Well, yeah, you're not going to talk to your players about that. That's a different answer, you know. But yes, communicating with your players, talking to your players, any sorts of issues or problems that involve your players should involve a conversation with your players. All right. We're about done, folks. We are trying to raise money for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. So if you are interested in donating to these folks, I'm trying to raise $500 for them. All tips that are at that link right there that was just posted. Once we get $500 raised, we will contribute to them. So there's a last little plug for that. Hey, we might as well just lay a plug in for Lair magazine. If you're looking for high quality Dungeon Master resources that you can use in your games, become a DM Lair patron today. I also run D&D one-shot games, and I choose the players from my patrons. So if you're interested in that, you can also go check that out. So I think we're about done here, folks. We can't really rate anybody because YouTube doesn't have a mechanism for rating. I don't think they do. I'm pretty sure YouTube does not have a mechanism for rating. So, create a highlight, add a stream marker. We don't have a raid, do we? Share. I don't think we can raid. I wish I could raid somebody. But I think we're finished, folks. So, we will see you next time. I have a live stream every week, pretty much. Sometimes we do it on Twitch. Sometimes we do it here on YouTube. So, I'll see you around. Have a wonderful evening. I will, goodbye now. I'm gonna leave now. I'm going. Bye. Thank you for hanging out with me. Bye, everybody. I rate you highly. Thanks for your content. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.